extremely elevated operational risks for the pilots undertaking this mission, and perhaps is linked to the allegations of that some jets were shot down or damaged on night one. So that is the restraint portion, and it's no small thing. It might be easier for politicians to kind of give such commands, but for the actual individual who has to hold their nerve and follow orders with enemy aircraft in the air, we shouldn't underestimate how demanding that is. With respect to the range of options, I mean, we see strikes now that have expanded beyond simply Pakistan, Kashmir. In 2019, Balakot is, it is in KPK, but realistically, it's just barely across the border. And we're now talking about expanding into Punjab proper, kind of the strategic and cultural heartland. And the range of assets we saw employed, particularly the use of loitering munitions, so-called suicide drones, which the Indian Air Force is basically imparting a technique and an approach that we've seen in other conflict theaters. So Azerbaijan, Armenia conflict, some of the Middle East conflicts, but the very first time this technology has been employed, and from what we can see, employed to great effect.
You also say, Professor, in this piece, and I quote again, in any military campaign, shaping the strategic narrative is nearly as important as shaping the battle space. Unfortunately, India ceded that narrative space. And I can tell you here in India, there have been a lot of fights over this whole narrative battle, as it were, because, we've seen the visible proof of what this military campaign actually did in Pakistan at all those bases and those terror sites. But your view on the narrative battle, what were the consequences, according to you, of India ceding this strategic narrative during Operation Sindoor, and how might this impact its deterrence capability?
Well, the story that unfolded on night one was not one widespread, I should say, of the ability to precisely strike infrastructure, the ability to carry out these operations in the face of what appeared to be at the time a reasonably credible air defense system. It was the allegation that one or more aircraft may have been shot down, and the lack of confirmation, the sort of refusal to engage or discuss on the part of Indian military spokespeople, as I write in the piece, creates a vacuum that allowed all sorts of commentators, some who are credible, some who seem to have a Twitter account and an internet feed and no more knowledge backing them up, to go crazy with their narratives. And again, then this was picked up by the international media, which turned it into a story of French jets versus Chinese jets, totally devoid of the context in which operations were taking place, totally devoid of any kind of discussion about what India may have achieved in the course of this. And it really took on a life of its own. And to be perfectly blunt with you and your audience, it was this point that led me to write this paper in the first place, because I felt that the conversations and the discussions that I was seeing in London and elsewhere were not related to what I saw as the big picture or the important aspect of this operation.
And I'm really glad you did, Professor, because I can tell you, being in the middle of it, and I've just returned from Kashmir, it was difficult to zoom out from all of those little tactical aspects of the battle space and the fog of war, which we still currently are in. But another thing you say, which is related in this piece, is, and I quote, rather than serious analysis of India's targeting methodology, command intent, like you just referred to, or escalation thresholds, coverage focused instead on the air-to-air engagement that led to the loss of Indian aircraft. In your view, once again, this is valuable because you are zoomed out, you're on the outside looking in. How do you think the media's focus, or social media's focus, or the seeded narrative arena, as it were, how do you think this overshadowed the broader strategic objectives of Sindoor?
Well, again, if you go back and look at all of the coverage that emerged around the world, it was questions about, is this a deep-seek moment for Chinese aircraft? Do Chinese missiles have the edge over French or European or Western? What are the implications of this for the defense of Taiwan? Does this mean now that Taiwan is undefendable because these aircraft will be in the air and they manage to, possibly bring down a Rafale or other frontline Russian fighters? And again, and I'm glad you cited the fog of war, because this is another really key point. We will have answers to a lot of our questions, but it probably won't be for months, right? Analysts and observers like yourself will be picking over the details of this for some time to come, and we'll be able to answer some of those questions, at some point in the future.
Yes.
But trying to make a snap judgment on the basis of incomplete information and then extrapolating it to a whole range of other scenarios, that's not the way serious work gets done.
Very true. And in the first few days, as a result of the huge amount of misinformation and half information, as it were, especially from Pakistan's side, it seems like a lot of the fog really only thickened, and there wasn't clarity until a few days later, when the Indian military conducted very detailed briefings which brought that first layer of clarity. Professor, quote number 4, the highlight that I'd like to read out now, is one of the most interesting ones, and I imagine this is the one that people are going to pick up and take away with them, which is, quote, despite Pakistani tactical successes, India appears to have largely achieved its stated objectives. In your view, Professor, what were India's stated objectives? And I'm asking because we want to get this absolutely clear. It's rare to get an independent view. How were they achieved despite facing these tactical setbacks, in your understanding?
So the stated objectives were to inflict punishment and degrade the infrastructure that exists within parts of Pakistan connected to cross-border terrorism.
Yeah.
Not to provoke a general conflict or a wider set of engagements with the Pakistani military. Beyond that, then, once the sort of tit-for-tat cycle began, there was a desire to show and demonstrate an ability to strike and to do more than just demonstrate an ability to hit terrorist infrastructure, but to have an ability to sort of show a degree of escalation dominance. But I think that it's really important then for understanding, because I know some in your viewership might then raise questions about why the government, stopped when it did. And it gets back to what was the mission in the first place. Yeah. The mission in the first place was about terrorist infrastructure. It was not about provoking a broader conflict. And those were the mission orders given to the military. The prime minister, I think, has been very clear and very specific in his language about what the intent was. And I think they've met what they've said they set out to do.
So your assessment, just to be clear, Professor, would be that given the terms of reference, if I can use that phrase, for what the military was ordered to achieve, that so-called operational freedom, your assessment would be they did the maximum that they could within that window?
I think they achieved what they set out to do.
Yeah.
Right? The question of what will be the long-term deterrent effect, will this lead to various groups or the elements of the Pakistani state that might work from them from changing their minds and behaviors? I mean, these are things that we'll only be able to observe and assess over time.
Okay. Quote number 5 from your piece, Professor. Quote, operations expanded in scope, penetrating Pakistan's Chinese-supplied air defense network to target select forward air bases for the first time since the 1971 war, unquote. Professor, what is the strategic significance? Again, I want it broken down because we don't want to get this wrong. What is the strategic significance, in your view, of India targeting Pakistani forward air bases in a non-war scenario? And how does this action compare to past military engagements between the two nations, in your view?
Well, first of all, it demonstrates the range of capabilities that the Indian Air Force has built up over the last decade, because we already talked about the addition of loitering munitions to the arsenal, long-range precision, sort of standoff strike capabilities, largely French provided, that have been added to the arsenal and appeared to have worked with great effect. And the ability to, again, operate in the space and in the face of what on paper is a credible air defense network. Yeah. This is not third-rate technology that the Pakistani Air Force has, it is good Chinese material. And so the ability to execute those to effect across a range of targets in a very short period of time demonstrates a kind of a very significant operational capability. And this also means we are in very, I might say, sort of undiscovered country when it comes to military operations. And I'm going to put my academic hat on for a moment and say, in the context of the nuclear era, we do not have an example of two nuclear-armed states who've engaged in reciprocal airstrikes like this at all, right? And 2019 was seen to be a bit of a watershed moment, and that was very carefully calibrated and carefully orchestrated. We don't have this. The Russians and the Chinese did fight in the late 1960s, but this was on the ground, and in some cases, the combatants were carrying clubs precisely because they were concerned about escalation. So this is really new space, and I think, going to your question about implications, I mean, academics like me and my colleagues who are specialists in nuclear weapons are going to probably be studying this for decades to come.
I believe that entirely, Professor. And the Indian Prime Minister, no doubt you've already heard him say multiple times, that the nuclear bluff has been called and that India is not going to, be vulnerable to nuclear blackmail anymore, which leads to the sixth highlight that I want to pull out from your piece, which is India now appears less willing to maintain that distinction, the distinction, between terror and the military or state-owned assets. In effect, future terror attacks or terrorist attacks may be treated as the initiation of conventional hostilities. That's very specific. In your view, Professor, once again, how does this switch in India's approach of treating terrorist attacks as conventional hostilities or act of war, as the government says, after the, how does this alter the dynamics of our deterrence strategy with Pakistan? In many ways, Operation Sindoor was a demonstration of that.
So I see it as an evolution in the government's policies. If we go back to 2016 and the surgical strikes, were a change in approach in the sense of these sort of cross-border raids happened in the past, but they were never publicized. They were never made so public. And then the 2019 airstrikes in Balakot really was seen to be a break from past precedent because this was not operations in Kashmir, which I think, there was a sense that the two sides saw Kashmir as different, right? But carrying an operation into a country proper was an entirely different animal, and those that was carried out. And now you have a next level, which is to say multiple targets being struck in multiple rounds across a much broader swath of the country. And linked to that, the policy change of not ahead of time feeling the need to assemble the dossier, connect the dots, to sort of say that it's incumbent on India to prove, in a courtroom sense or beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that there are these connections, and instead to try to change the equation and say the onus is now actually on the other side. If you fail to rein these groups in, if you fail to deny them space to operate, then that is enough. That is probable cause of collusion, and will decide that we may take serious action.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Professor, because that's precisely what my seventh highlight from your piece is, and I'll quote that again. India no longer accepts that the burden of proof lies with them or that they must produce evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to establish the Pakistani state's complicity. Again, very specific. So my question to you is, what are the implications of India shifting the burden of proof regarding Pakistan's complicity in terrorist activities, and how might this affect international diplomatic relations? We've seen that particularly become a flashpoint, not just this time, but during Balakot, during the surgical strikes as well. What about now, Professor?
I do think it's something that the Indian government needs to keep in mind. And the fact that they've sort of, and the Prime Minister's words have suggested that the burden of proof will not rest with India, at the same time doesn't mean that they should not attempt to make a credible case to international audiences. I think what we saw in the immediate aftermath of the terror attack was an outpouring of sort of sympathy and solidarity for India. Although, a number of India's partners at times might have publicly defaulted to a bit of the old, we call on both sides to be restrained. In private, there were messages of support, understanding, we understand you need to do what you need to do. And so I think there is, in the present moment and based on recent history, I think that India has the benefit of the doubt from its partners, but it shouldn't take that for granted. And I say this as an American whose governments over time have probably abused the trust of their partners, that because the government does not feel the burden of proof necessarily lies with them, doesn't mean they shouldn't do the best job possible to make the case and demonstrate that they are right. Because, if this were to sort of escalate significantly, people might start to point fingers. And so they need to kind of do that narrative campaign alongside the military campaign.
And I'm very glad you're telling it like it is, Professor, because I can guarantee you that people are listening right now. And at the cost of repeating myself, it is refreshing to hear someone say it without any of the usual embellishments or one-sidedness that we've been hearing from either the other side or this side. But my 8th quote, as we come towards the end of this interview, where you say, rather than treating terrorism as a separate challenge, India is increasingly framing it within the logic of state-to-state deterrence. That, once again, Professor, is something that was, on day 2 and day 3 of Operation Sindoor, demonstrated militarily. In what ways, in your view, does integrating counter-terrorism within state-to-state deterrence frameworks enhance or complicate India's national security policy? It's a broad question, but I still want to know your view. Yeah.
So I think I'll answer in both directions. So I think it does enhance in the sense that one of the things that I think has frustrated a succession of Indian governments was the sort of plausible deniability of intelligence agencies supporting terrorist groups. And, there are always questions about what are the exact links, how much command and control is there? Can we definitely demonstrate that there's some handler with a radio who's directing these people to carry out their operations? Are there real fingerprints? Can money be shown? Can arms be shown to be linked back?
Yeah.
And so by saying that we see this as the actions of state actors, we're not going to, again, get dug down into those details. We're going to say there's a deterrence posture. Anything that happens here will be met with a response. I think where you get into an area of risk, and I do talk about it at the tail end of the article, is twofold. One is to say you can't make your response so mechanistic that there's no judgment left for the decision makers at the top. Yeah. Because on the one hand, there might be cases in which non-state actors and terrorist groups seek to provoke precisely because they want to trigger a broader conflagration. And it might be their agenda to even necessarily provoke an overreaction, which is, to be quite frank, a well-worn terrorist tactic to discredit particularly kind of democratic states. So there needs to still be a degree of discretion held by decision makers. And then the other thing is, this is going to turn into a bit of an intelligence cat and mouse game. Yes. Because after a strike, the smart terrorists, even those, one group may have carried something out, anyone else with sense is going to go to ground the second a big thing happens. They're not going to be sitting around in known facilities waiting for retaliation. And so the ability to track and monitor and know precisely where the pain points are going to become ever harder with each sort of iteration, because groups are going to spend a lot more time on concealment. They're going to spend a lot more time on covering their tracks. And that's going to put the job on the sort of intelligence targeting side, make it much more difficult.
Professor Ladwig, this has been extremely illuminating. I did have a couple more questions, but I think you've covered most of them in your answers. So I'm going to end this interview with my final quote from your piece, which says, Operation Sindoor should be viewed as a recalibration aimed at restoring deterrence, clarifying escalation thresholds, and reinforcing the consequences of inaction. That couldn't have said it better. And I thank you once again for your wisdom, for sharing your insights and your thoughts. Like I said, and I repeat, it's rare to see an independent view that doesn't have an axe to grind and gives us a view from the outside in, because I can tell you Operation Sindoor has been over for a couple of weeks now. Well, it's not over, it's paused, as the Prime Minister reminds us. But as you said, I think academics, scholars, observers are going to be picking through the incomplete pieces of this operation for many, many weeks to come. Professor Walter Ladwig, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time here on NDTV.
Thank you so much. It was great to be with you.
Well, that's it on India Matters. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again at the same time on Monday.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's leading AI smartphone brand.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years. I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down by Pakistan-backed cowards.
When you interact with people on ground, you're able to reflect their sentiments much better.
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time. It's a prime time that's unmissable.
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor, only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
The last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Genzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong,
right.
And transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news.
Good evening, you're watching The Last Word. A chilling ordeal unfolded on board Flight 6E2142, an Indigo airliner from Delhi to Srinagar on the 21st of May, 2 days back. Denied airspace deviations, pilots battled a life-threatening storm, facing hail, severe turbulence and critical system failures. With autopilot disabled, they manually landed the A321 after a harrowing experience. The aviation watchdog is now probing the pilot's decision to confront the storm. We'll be looking at just what has emerged by way of new information on this flight. You can see an image of that aircraft after it landed, its nose cone entirely smashed. Also coming up on the program, the well-known defense expert John Spencer on the success of Indian-made weapon systems during Operation Sindoor. But first, the situation on Flight 6E2142 from Delhi to Srinagar on the 21st of May, this Wednesday, was far more serious than previously detailed. It now seems clear that the pilots were fighting a potentially life-threatening situation. After being denied permission by Pakistan Air Traffic Control in Lahore to enter their airspace to avoid an intense storm front over Pathankot, the crew ended up combating an increasingly desperate situation after deciding to penetrate the weather in front. Earlier, they had also requested the Northern Control of the Indian Air Force for permission to deviate left towards the border, but were informed by the IAF of the Pakistan airspace ban. They were reminded of it. And this, of course, has been there for some time following tensions between India and Pakistan. Now, questions will be asked on whether the pilots made the right decision to pierce the storm front, whether they should have come back instead. Well, the aircraft did fly into an intense hailstorm. It did encounter severe turbulence. What we now know is that there were multiple in-cockpit alerts that went off. There were alerts for an angle of attack fault, an alternate law protection was lost, and the backup speed scale became unreliable. In other words, a host of technical factors and huge safety concerns perhaps at this stage. On the flight, there were violent updrafts and downdrafts which passengers felt. The autopilot system tripped, which resulted in huge variations in airspeed. Amidst the severe turbulence, the Airbus A321 descended rapidly at 8,500 feet per minute at one stage, far exceeding the typical 1,500 to 3,000 feet per minute for a standard approach. With the autopilot system non-operational, the pilots manually flew the jetliner into Srinagar, declaring an emergency and making a safe landing. While the aviation regulator will probe whether the pilots should have returned instead of trying to fly through this weather, it's important to reflect on the seriousness of the situation in the cockpit and how the pilots battled through what now appears to be an incredibly harrowing situation. Well, joining us now, Captain Kishore Chinta, the Chief Pilot of Sirius India Airlines Private Limited. Thanks very much, Captain Chinta. We'll get into whether or not the pilots should have actually gone through that in a moment. But the fact is that they did go through it. How severe were these in-flight alerts, in-cockpit alerts, which were sounded, the fact that airspeed sensors had been degraded, the fact that there were huge updrafts and downdrafts as well? How serious an emergency was this for this flight once it got in to that storm front?
Good evening, Vishnu. Thank you for having me on NDTV. The seriousness is not something which the pilots could not have handled, or something which is not something they train for on a regular basis. So updrafts and downdrafts are pretty much normal in any turbulent air conditions when you enter a cumulonimbus cloud like they did. But prima facie, as it appears, it was a case of a difference between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, where they had the international border on the left side, where a threat of surface-to-air missiles from the Pakistani side. And on the right side was climbing terrain, where the mountains are close by. And there was a squall line all along that axis that they could not have turned right. Turning right would have meant even worse weather. So it was a difficult decision for the pilots per se. It's easy for us to sit here in a cozy environment and ask questions on what best the pilots could have done. But I'm sure with the sum of all the experience and the training they had, they chose the best way out at that particular time. And they seem to have done a fabulous job of handling the flight conditions at that point of time and landing the aircraft safely.
Captain Amit Singh also joins us at this stage. Captain Singh, we'll get into whether or not it was the right thing for the pilots to actually go through that storm front. But give us a sense of how severe the emergency was, given what we've heard from the regulator when they were actually going through it.
Well, if we have to believe what we are reading, it was a near disaster. Air France 447, which crashed into the sea, was descending at the rate of 10,000 feet per minute. This aircraft, at least on flight radar, I've seen more than 5,500 feet per minute rate of descent, and then climb more than 3,000 feet. So the passengers and the crew would have felt high G-force. So G-force is going up and down. So the change in G would be pretty severe for the aircraft if it exceeds the operating limits. And at that height, when you are having low temperatures, hail hitting the aircraft, so visually there would be lightning, and the pitot, which means the probes which sense the speed, would have frozen momentarily maybe, or for a longer time. So all hell would have broken loose inside. Cockpit indications would have gone way out of the limits. Warning bells would be sounding if we have to believe what is written. Stall warning. Stall warning is not what a pilot wants to hear, which means the aircraft has ceased to fly any longer. The wings are not generating any lift, so aircraft is going to come down. Which way? That depends. So the pilots are trained for high altitude jet upset recovery, because it is the biggest threat now for aviation. But given this situation, it was more complicated because of the constraints around, and they're not able to maneuver. If you have the room to maneuver, you can avoid or reduce the risk. But here, everything is adding up, contributing. Another biggest issue would be the hail hitting the engines. In 1988, when 737 came down with both engines flamed out, they landed on a grassy patch. Because of water ingestion and hail, they entered a cloud. So that is a big concern. Nowadays, ice crystals and hail are damaging the fan blades, and there could be a flame out, momentary flame out, if passengers were saying that the electricity or the lighting was going on and off. There could be disturbance with the electrical, which is basically powered by the engines, the generators. So a lot would have been happening, and it all depends on how the investigation is carried out, so that we get something to learn from it, not just paper value. The last accident which happened in Jamshedpur with SpiceJet, one person died, unfortunately. The accident report came after 3 years, and that too, it has been petered down. So there's not much learning from it. So I'm sure the pilots would need a lot of help psychologically also, because having gone through such an ordeal, if it is true what we are reading, I'm not sure because there's no official word out.
This is a DGCA report. It's a press release by the Directorate General of Civil Aviation on the basis of which we are reporting all of this. Captain Chinta, let's just look at some of the other things which went on in the cockpit. Multiple in-cockpit alerts for an angle of attack fault, and alternate law protection was lost. The backup speed scale became unreliable. There were violent updrafts and downdrafts. The autopilot tripped, right? The aircraft switched to alternate law. They were flying with this degraded flight control mode. In many senses, this was similar to AF447, the A330, which went down off the coast of Brazil several years back. It does appear that, the data they received in the cockpit in terms of airspeed may have been inaccurate. We don't want to, get into why that happened. We don't know so far, but it could be, given the conditions, the pitot tubes may have been impacted. But when you read all of this, and all of this comes off that press release of the DGCA, it appears to be an incredibly challenging experience. So you were telling me earlier on that, pilots are trained to deal with all of this. But then, things seem to be escalating here pretty fast. Would you like to reflect on that?
Yes, Vishnu. The fact that this was an Airbus 321neo equipped with the LEAP engines, we should be amazed that the engines didn't fail and the performance was great. And the aircraft was at flight level 360 for the Airbus 320. The ceiling is 400. So apparently, obviously, it was in very thin air. The turbulence speed would be about 0.6 mark at those altitudes. There's a range. So at higher levels, the safe speed margin is much lower due to what we pilots call as coffin corner. So the pilot couldn't have descended. He couldn't have outclimbed. The auto thrust too, in case of excessive speed variation, like in this case, would have had to be disconnected, and the pilots would have been operating the powers manually. And to go over at these levels of turbulence, there's obviously been severe turbulence, like Captain Ahmed said. On the flight radar, it appears to be 5,600 feet of rate of descent and 3,600 feet of rate of climb. That's a combined variation of the vertical of about close to 11,000 feet between the axis of up and down. So
the DGCA says during this period, the aircraft rate of descent reached 8,000 feet per minute. Okay, that's their official statement. But carry on.
Yes, that's probably from the flight data recorder.
Right.
But we just going over what the flight radar data, which is available as open source, course. So at these levels, as such, negotiating weather is very tricky, and the crew's mind would be to tackle this in every possible way with inaccurate airspeed, stall warning, because the stall margin reduces at these altitudes, which Captain Amit has already pointed out. It's probably as close to the worst case jet upset recovery, which in real life scenario, which the pilots would have handled. So it's pure providence that with inaccurate air data available in terms of airspeed, altitude and everything, they would have relied. It was pretty late in the evening. So in all probability would have been dark all over. So no visual references for attitude. So whatever they did would probably been a very thin margin from going down to making it a good recovery from where they were.
Yeah. Captain Amit Singh, this brings me on to the other question of the fact that the pilots chose to press on instead of perhaps holding in a particular position, assessing what the weather was, particularly since there's a notice to airmen about Pakistan. Everybody knows about it. Indian Airlines aren't allowed to fly over there. Some would suggest that it was strange that the pilot chose instead to get in touch with air traffic control in Lahore, only to be told that, no, I'm sorry, you cannot fly over Pakistani airspace, right? And in a situation like that, why he didn't turn around and return to Delhi? Is this not something Shouldn't safety come first? Do you believe that these questions need to be asked?
Well, a lot of questions need to be asked because this would be considered an accident as per the definition. So in an accident, we look at the organization as well. In the first place, when the flight was planned, that is the pre-flight planning or dispatch stage, when there was adequate information that there's a huge cell which spans across the flight path, and this is the time of the year when you have rapid growing violent thunderstorms, pre-monsoon times. So it is not that people are not aware at dispatch. So why was the route not altered to the more eastern route where the rest of the traffic was flying or coming out of Srinagar? So that is the first question, the planning stage, because more work on ground means less work in air. So why put it on the pilot to do everything? As it is, fatigue is also a bigger factor. Pressinitis is a problem with the pilots that has to be handled in multiple ways. So the radar is able to detect up to 160 nautical miles, more than 300 kilometers, pretty accurately, these modern radars. With color coding, they can show red and magenta of threats as well. So it is not that adequate warning wasn't there, but the cells move very fast. These thunderstorm cells build very fast and move across very fast, closing in. So when you are operating in the air, dimensionally, you are not able to predict who's going to reach first. So maybe they had some indication that they would be able to cross that place by the time the thunderstorm reaches. So that could have been, that needs to be studied, investigated. Moreover, the problem is that if you declare Mayday, then no agency, whether war or anything, will be able to deny you any facility. So that is the international norm. If you announce Mayday, which means the aircraft is in distress, needs immediate assistance, then they have to open up your airspace, open up, be it a defense airfield or whatever. It has to be done. So that is the international norm which Pakistan cannot refuse. Nobody can refuse. Even now, if the flights are coming in from Middle East towards Bombay, if you have an in-flight emergency, then if you have smoke inside, you have to put the aircraft down as soon as possible. If Karachi is the closest port, you have to go there. You don't have to think that there's a war on or not.
All right, look, gentlemen, we leave it
security.
over there. I'm running short on time, but I think on the basis of what the Director General of Civil Aviation has indicated, this was a fairly close call on this particular flight. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, several MPs from across party lines have been traveling all over the world trying to explain to countries why India's policy on terrorism is what it is, how Pakistan is an epicenter of terrorism. It's not just these opposition MPs. The foreign minister has been traveling extensively, and today India received an incredible amount of support from Germany. Let's listen in.
India security and global security. We all were appalled by the brutal terrorist attack on India on the 22nd of April. We condemned this attack on civilians in the strongest terms. Our deepest sympathy goes out to all victims and their families. After military attacks on both sides, and India, of course, has every right to defend itself against terrorism, the fact that now a truce is in place is something we appreciate very much. What is important now is that this truce remains stable, that dialogue can happen in order to find bilateral solutions.
The success of Made in India systems during Operation Sindoor has been very much a highlight of India's operations against Pakistan. And joining us now to tell us his thoughts about some of the weapon systems and the strategy that India deployed in Op Sindoor in the fight against Pakistan, John Spencer. He's among the world's foremost defense analysts. Thanks very much, John, for being with us. You know, when I was on the line of control just a couple of days back, the key message which I was told by Indian soldiers was that when you've got any number of incoming drones, it's not always possible to fire off surface-to-air missiles, which is why older technology also has an important role to play when it comes to taking on drones. How is this a pragmatic way of dealing with the threat which we saw emerge from Pakistan in the last couple of weeks?
I mean, it's very pragmatic, and I study a war around the world, and
there's so many aspects of this that are very revealing and surprising. I mean, war is always the ultimate test, and even watching Indian generals talk about rehearsing a drone swarm attack days before Pakistan actually launched it, and all the different components. You know, I'm an infantryman by trade, but understanding all the different components of radar and all the electronic warfare systems and active protection, but also the ability to lethally hit an incoming drone or missile. I know it's very sophisticated, but to see made in India products being incorporated and to be so effective, and I think what we've seen in Operation Sindoor was, you know, not all talk, it was all action, and the effectiveness of all these systems combined together in a layered defense, because I know it's not one magic thing, although we can talk about the BrahMos missile and other things, but it's not one magic device. This is a few years, India turning the military-industrial base around and implementing different systems in a very effective, cost-effective as well system that would show to be effective against Chinese and other types of products.
No, I think that's an interesting point, because there's been a fair amount of criticism of the indigenous or the Indian defense sector, that they've been very slow, they've been behind the curve, there have been delays in government orders, and that may all be true, but it does appear that there's been a great deal of progress which has been made. So India's been typically one of the largest importers of weaponry in the world, but based on what you are seeing, there's been a sense, would you agree, of the indigenous capacity to build weaponry really come to the front and showcase that prowess against Pakistan, right?
100%. And I also know, you know, understanding where it started in 2014 at 14% make in India and advancing that all the way up to 65%. So it's not just making amazing products, but it's doing it at scale as well, because having been to India, having been to many locations, I know it's a very, very big country, and to be able to protect the line of defense, protect the Golden Temple and places like that, you're talking about a massive area where you need the ability to scale military industrial equipment. And that was shown again to be effective, and what India decided before this has been paid off. And for a lot of militaries, imagining the future of warfare is really hard for them, and what systems to invest in and everything. It appears, and I'm actually will be on the ground next month to learn more, but it appears that India made many decisions that basically proved to be true and the right decisions.
There's also been very high tech which has also been used. I asked this because I began by speaking about low-cost solutions, which make sense in this kind of fight anywhere. But at the end of the day, it was the really high, the relatively high cost and high tech solutions that, in a way, pushed Pakistan to come to the ceasefire table. I'm talking specifically about the attacks on air bases. So, you know, you were talking about the BrahMos missile. There are other systems as well, a few of them Israeli systems. But all of those high-tech solutions ultimately brought Pakistan to the ceasefire table, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just a demonstration of the air power and all the jets that were in the sky with, you know, beyond visual range, but also what the BrahMos at Mach 3 is able to do, and no defense against all of these systems. And again, I know that in the BrahMos it was very impressive and showed to be effective against even advanced air defense systems. But I know it was a combination of air detection, electronic warfare, radar on the Indian fighter jets that makes all of that possible. But yes, these high tech. Although, you know, again, I travel the world, so I know that all warfare is a combination of very effective new technology, but also old technology being maintained and utilized in those ground systems. You need it all, and India just demonstrated how you combine new, very advanced, made in India products with other products that are older but still showing effective, to include even ground-based radar.
How do you assess the performance of Chinese weapon systems in this brief war? I mean, if I use that word, most people don't, but it's limited. But how would you assess, you know, Chinese weapon systems?
Yeah, I mean, talk is talk. Satellite imagery is what it is. So I view the Chinese systems as ineffective against Indian systems. I'm not saying they're not effective against a range of capabilities, but India demonstrated that even when you have advanced Chinese systems, they are able to hit what they want when they want. And I'll stand by that because India hit all 11 sites that they wanted to hit and send a message, not overwhelming destruction, but send a message that they could penetrate those Chinese systems. And it's a word of caution too, because I'm sure the Chinese and the Pakistanis will get together and try to see how they were penetrated and their systems weren't as superior as they had sold Pakistan that they were. So they'll make adjustments. So this isn't over in having that overwhelming military superiority, we call it overmatch, that India has over these Chinese systems, but clear demonstration of the ability to by, stuff blowing up on satellite imagery.
Let's talk a little bit about drones deployed by India. Many of these are made in India drones. Even the Harop drone, which is an Israeli design, is actually made in India. The Sky Striker as well. In terms of the operations which you saw, how important were these sophisticated drones? Because drones, as you know, come in all shapes and sizes and capabilities. But in terms of suicide munitions, which is what the Harop and the Sky Striker are, what role did they play?
Yeah, they played a big role having studied the Harop in the second battle, Nagorno-Karabakh war. It's a very effective loitering munition that can stay up for a long amount of time, reduces your risk on fighter jets and fighter pilots, but also can play in an integrated role of an attack like this where they target those air defense systems because they are cheaper, but very advanced, can go over great distances and stay up for a long time. So both the Striker and the Harop played a role in this integrated attack because you have to be able to take out the radar systems and the capabilities that would stop you from your but they saved Indian lives. They're cost effective and they're really hard to defeat. But again, India showed that they could defeat the Turkish drones and other systems that are similar, but not in an integrated fashion, the way that India integrated them.
What I found interesting, and this is a story I did, 3 days back, is that in as much as we talk about, all of the drones which went in and the missiles which went in, I was in a frontline position on the line of control in the Akhnur sector, talking with soldiers on tanks. And India fought with tanks as well. They didn't cross the international border or the line of control, but they went right up to the line and they used that as well. How would you reflect the fact that, when the Indian attack took place, it involved everything. The Navy had a role, perhaps not offensive, but certainly defensive. Army tanks were firing on terrorist ingress routes as well, and then drones and missiles, which we've spoken about. How was it a complete, armed forces effort? It wasn't restricted in that sense.
Right, exactly. And I hope that's the message that even India takes, that, of course, the Air Force demonstrated a superior capability, but both in both the defense with the ground-based systems, everything from tanks to artillery to the soldiers manning the ground-based radar, that this is India is a joint military with joint capabilities, and you couldn't have pulled off a 4-day decisive victory like this without all of those working simultaneously and in harmony, which is the ultimate kind of PhD level of warfare, is when you can fight joint warfare and you combine them all to be this effective and put soldiers at risk, but brave soldiers with the capabilities integrated across a joint force. And that's why that pressure with all the commanders from the ground, the air, and the naval was an important one, showing how each one integrated with each other to provide a vital component where it wouldn't have worked if you didn't have each one doing their part, but also at scale and with effectiveness.
A final question to you. It's been several years now that India and the United States have worked together, not just at the strategic level, but also at the tactical level. I'm talking about military exercises. You've been an infantryman yourself. It's been a bit of a crawl, walk, run sort of evolution of that military association through joint exercises. How does America assess India as a potential war-fighting partner?
Yeah, It's a great question, and I'm going to continue to look at it. I mean, I was on the ground in 2019 with India's research centers, India's military, walking the attacks in Mumbai, learning from India, and so that we could take the lessons. I know the relationship is strong, and as you said, it has gone up and down. With this shift, as I wrote in my article, I think there's a lot of things that India demonstrated from the strategic down to the tactical that will could improve the U.S. military relationships and the way we do things. I think the relationship is strong, but hopefully this is a demonstration that it improves as we look into how did India do this, and those relationships increase, because this is this no nuclear blackmail, this fight against terrorism, that's a global concern, and that's why I want to learn more, and I'll be on the ground, because I think that there's a lot that the U.S. military and the U.S. government can learn from this event. Controlled response to terrorism and putting a red line saying no more will we allow this proxy low intensity terrorism against a state actor.
All right, thanks very much, John. Great speaking to you, and great to hear your thoughts on on how this conflict went. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That's huge. That is a biggie. It's out there.
गोल्ड प्लस क्लियर ग्लास, पार हो या नियर, सब कुछ दिखे क्लियर।
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor. Only on NDTV 24/7.
गोल्ड प्लस ऑप्टिमिस्टिक रिफ्लेक्टिव ग्लास लगाओ, धूप की गर्मी को दूर भगाओ और बिजली का बिल भी बचाओ।
Do you really know the company you invest in?
Everyone, this is the big fight, and I'm Maria Shakil. The Supreme Court has ruled that no sentence will be imposed on a man convicted under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which is POCSO. Citing the unique circumstances of this case, the decision was made through the court's powers under Article 142 of the Constitution. The man, who was 24 at the time of the offence, had been convicted of engaging in a sexual relationship with a minor girl. He later married her after she reached adulthood. The couple now live together with their child. A committee of experts, including a clinical psychologist and a social scientist, was constituted to examine the victim's present circumstances and her emotional well-being. Their findings played a key role, in fact, a big role, I should say, in the court's final decision. I'm quoting a part of that order which said, "The society judged her, the legal system failed her, and her own family abandoned her." That's what the Supreme Court remarked. In its ruling, the court stated that the victim, now an adult, did not view the incident as a crime. To quote the apex court again, though the incident is seen as crime in law, the victim did not accept it as one. It was not the legal crime that caused trauma to her, but rather the circumstances that followed. What she had to face as a consequence was the police, the legal system, and a constant battle to save the accused from punishment, unquote. It also called the facts of this case as an eye-opener for everyone. The court, in fact, held that the extraordinary circumstances, including the emotional attachment of the victim to the accused and their current family life, warranted the execution of powers under Article 142 to do complete justice. So on the big fight tonight, I ask, what will be the implications of this extraordinary ruling? Should it raise some concerns? Should it be seen as a one-off judgment, or will it really become a precedent in other POCSO cases? We have a panel of legal experts and activists to decode the Supreme Court ruling and its implications. But first up, let me bring in Justice Usha Mehra, former judge of Delhi High Court, who is joining us live. Justice Mehra, how do you look at this Supreme Court judgment?
You see, the circumstances of this case were such which compelled the Supreme Court to exercise its extraordinary jurisdiction under Article 142 of the Constitution. Now, this judgment cannot apply in each and every case of POCSO, because it is the circumstances where the accused was in love with the minor girl and she was also in love with him. Once she got the adulthood, she married and now they have a child. To send such a person to jail means disrupting the family, depriving the child of father's love and wife's husband. In similar circumstances, way back in 70s or maybe early 80s, there was a case of Mathura. She married, she was raped, and thereafter media took it up, ladies took it up that accused should be punished, why he has been acquitted. You know, because of our cry as lady lawyers and because of media taking it up, the family, she had already married. Mathura had already married. Now when it came to her in-laws' house that she was raped, they turned her out. So therefore, each circumstance of each case are different. This cannot be a general applicable judgment.
Okay, so Justice Mehra, you are saying essentially that this cannot set a precedent. But what does it do to the larger, you know, how will the future POCSO cases be seen then? Because, ma'am, there are certain realities of India. You know, in this particular case, it's a case of an adolescent love as well. An age of consent question is also being brought in now. So are we not realizing that we should respect a minor's right to love as much as we should respect an adult's life to love?
Then you have to amend the law.
Yes.
Age should be reduced from 18 to 16, which everybody is saying now.
Yes.
And Supreme Court has also said that you must implement Section 6 of the POCSO Act, as well as take into consideration Article 21 while considering the case in a POCSO case. So once the guidelines laid down by the Supreme Court are implemented, I think many of the hurdles which are coming in the way of execution of the POCSO cases will come to an end.
And what do you see will be the larger implications in terms of support for victims?
The Supreme Court has categorically said that the state of Bengal should consider her after she qualifies the 10th board examination to give her some job. And if possible, media should come forward to help her also. It's a state duty to ensure that such a woman who has suffered in the society at the hand of police, at the hands of her own parents, at the hands of judiciary, should be compensated.
Okay, so you are saying that there should be some compensation and also support for the victims. Point well taken. But by what was clear certainly was that the Supreme Court earlier had criticized the Calcutta High Court's remarks as victim shaming and stereotyping.
And that is
that the Supreme Court has deplored very critically. They said this is unheard of, that judge passing such a remark that it is the girls who was responsible and provoking it because of adolescent sexual activities. This is unheard of. A judge had no business to pass such a remarks. And that is why this case was taken up suo motu by the Supreme Court.
My last question to you, ma'am, particularly with regards to the jurisdiction of lower courts in similar cases, how do you think that will be impacted?
This will be a guideline for the lower judiciary.
Yes.
In circumstances where the adolescent fell in love with a person, a not very old one, but at least he was just a 23 years old boy. And girl, I don't know what is the age, but it appears she must be around 16, 17 or whatever it is.
15 is what we were told.
15, 16. So therefore, in such a circumstances, even the trial court will try to take advantage of such a judgment if the accused marries her and they are living happily thereafter.
All right. Justice Mehra, pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for joining us here on NDTV. Let's bring in other panelists now. Mihira Sood is the advocate of the Supreme Court. Karna Nandi, senior advocate of the Supreme Court. Kasturi is actor and social activist. We also have Dr. Ranjana Kumari joining us. Karna Nandi, beginning with you, how do you look at the Supreme Court judgment? It is being seen as landmark, but very, very extraordinary at the same time.
This is a very interesting judgment from a legal standpoint, because in one sense it sweeps away the law and looks at the facts, the surrounding facts and circumstances that may or may not have anything to do with the proving the legal case. Right now, this is extremely unusual. It's a whole different philosophy of legal examination. There are many things that are troubling about this case. The fact, for example, that the man I think he was 25 and she was 14. So even jurisdictions that say that if there is consent, it won't be statutory rape, usually have something called a Romeo and Juliet clause. And what that clause is that they say that if there's, say, 3 years between the parties, then they won't prosecute. But here it's a question of 9 years. But I think what the judge has done, and let's keep in mind that today was his last day, and he still came. He lost his mother, actually, Justice Oak, and he's renowned for being a very, very compassionate judge, somebody who looks at justice. And he cremated his mother yesterday, and he came today and he delivered the judgment, and I happened to be in court at that time. And what he's done here is he has spoken to the girl, and he's understood the real position she's in, and he's invoked the Supreme Court's extraordinary jurisdiction under Article 142, and in essence, he has swept aside the law. Now, of course, he's said that this will not be precedent, but in my experience, that's not how it works. Once you make a judgment, even if you say it's not precedent, it becomes precedent, So while justice can't be done in a vacuum, and I think that taking this girl and the daughter's real situation into account and making sure that, or doing everything he could to make sure that they're going to be okay, that's really the sort of justice that we're looking for. Is it troubling? Very much so.
Okay. So, Ms. Nandi here says that it's troubling, but at the same time, perhaps a very interesting judgment. But if it does, will it really set a precedent is the larger question, because there are concerns around it. Ms. Sood, coming to you now, because this is an eye-opener for everyone. The fact here is that there are lacuna in the legal system which has been exposed. A system which has gone after a child, a minor, who went on and fought for her, seen as her tormentor. And then they have and her tormentor was convicted. So there are layers at which this entire judgment is playing out. Do you see this as a case in which it is also about informal choices, which are perhaps do not fit in what is acceptable social behavior?
Yes, there are so many layers. There are so many layers to this case, and I think it also really points to the diversity in our country, the diversity of relationships, types of marriages, and differences in how people in different situations also view marriage and romantic and sexual relationships. It's very difficult for one size fits all. Though of course that is what legislation tries to do, and there's a logic behind that as well. I think what the judgment has tried to do here is look more at the spirit of the law rather than the letter, and look at the intent, which is to protect innocent children, and do what is best for them. I don't know if I would necessarily say this. I don't know that I find this troubling, because I think in a way it looks at the spirit of the law and looks at the best interest of the child, who was then a child, more than the hard black letter of the law. I also do hope that this is not taken as a precedent, and Article 142 jurisdiction is an extraordinary power of the Supreme Court. It's not a power that is given, to the trial courts. So, yes, I certainly hope that this is not taken as a precedent, and these are things that should be looked at on a case-by-case basis only by courts that have the discretion to do that, which is not all the courts of the country. But having said that, yes, I think there is, it's not very clear from the media reports what exactly was her age at the time, and what was his age at the time. But I think leaving aside those technicalities, it's important to see this as yet another argument for lowering the age of consent,
yes,
and recognizing the reality of adolescent sexual relationships and exploration, and the fact that it is not always assault or abuse.
Yes.
And there is an element of consent that comes in with adolescence. And leaving aside the technicalities of this case, I think the larger issue, the one that we can take going forward, is what does this say about where we stand on that? And does it change our point of view on that?
Yes, I think the larger point certainly larger debate which should spark, or perhaps a significant discussion should begin, is on lowering the age of consent, because that's also a reality. Adolescent love is a reality, Dr. Ranjana Kumari. It cannot continue to be at 18 as is, and all efforts to lower it in the past has been dismissed. But this case, even if it doesn't really set a precedent legally, it should begin that much needed discussion on lowering the age of consent. Would you agree?
Well, certainly, I think POCSO needs a relook, and also this calls for a kind of, reform in terms of POCSO's own position on this issue. But let me paint another scenario to you. A 14-year-old getting engaged with whatever age, let's not say, but girl's age, we know that she was minor and she was in love with him, or she was lured by him, I don't know. But once she has had a sexual relationship, Indian society pushes women and girls, especially teenage girls and girls, that once you've had sexual relationship, you have no other choice but to go along with that person. And here, of course, the court has used extraordinary powers to, invoking this extraordinary power to deliver this judgment, where he is also taking the perception of the girl. Now, imagine a 14-year-old involved with this person, then gets married, then has a child from. So does she have any choice in given Indian society? Does she have any kind of, options to walk out of this relationship or to accept the relationship in toto? And then to tell the people that, look, I'm in love with him, this is his child, and I'm his wife. So I think this perception of this girl, when court is quoting it, then it's really failure of not only how the legal system has blamed her, but also society. We are not looking at the way society is treating these girls. And also Indian society, which is pushing a lot of girls in child marriage. 14, 12, 16, even today, even in spite of having a very stringent law, we know of child marriages happening. So what happens there? Is there, how then we justify all these relationships, we justify all this, very, very minor girls marrying whatever age men. And then we say, okay, fine, and the girls cannot and have absolutely no option to walk out of it. This whole sexual relationship is being seen in our society in such a manner. When we talk about this love and this kind of a teenage, desire to get into sexual relationship is seen, if when we look at the societies which give total freedom, then there is a total choice. You may have 3, 4, 5, 6 dating, and finally you decide to marry or not marry anybody. That choice is there. But do you think India has that choice? Do you think Indian society provides the teenage girls to choose and to say, but to accept? And so how much it is really voluntarily accepted, how much she's victim of the societal circumstances, or how much. So I think there's a lot to be discussed about this case, and I hope and I pray that this does not become precedence, though we all know, and Karuna is sitting on your program, I think we all know that such judgments are used, and it's a Supreme Court judgment. So certainly some way or the other lawyers are going to use it, and certainly is going to be making a bigger and long-term impact.
There was a 3-member committee which was formed, of course, to assist the victim in this particular case in what was seen as an informed decision of her own future, because she was abandoned by her family.
It wasn't. I have the judgment in front of me. And
go ahead,
Madhavi Diwan was, I have the judgment in front of me. Madhavi Diwan and Liz Matthew were appointed amicus curiae. And Madhavi Diwan said very clearly that she did not and could not have made an informed choice. And I think this is a very important point to be made.
Sure.
Because first, think of all the rules even if the 13-year-old
Maria, I totally agree with this. I totally agree with this. I mean, we are expecting a 14-year-old to make an informed choice.
If I may just finish, Ranjana ji.
Yes, please go ahead.
Madhavi has said here is that at the time that it was needed most, that she did not have the kind of support that she could have had from her family or from the state. So she was abandoned everywhere. Now, when we think of the age of consent, it's not actually the age of the consent, it's the age of non-criminalization of the male party in sexual activity. That's really what it is, right? So think of a 13-year-old, let's all do that, everyone watching. Can that 13-year-old, when they are approached by somebody who's, I was trying to look for the age, about 23 to 25, and the sisters also get into the act, and she is encouraged, she's approached and she's kind of to fall in love with this, whatever that means, to fall in love with this much, much older man. And then essentially the mother tries whatever she can to get her back. Imagine being that mother. And the child then goes, and then after some time, the mother sort of gives up, holds up, throws up her hands and abandons essentially the child. The state completely fails its obligation, and we all know that in such a situation, there is no question of, the state might act in a criminal jurisdiction, but in a protective jurisdiction, you'll have the Stray Child Welfare Committee that will be good and will intervene in such a situation. But even when they intervene, would the child be taken into a home? That would just be terrible, right? If you go to these homes, for the most part, across the country where they exist, they are terrible. So let's not, I mean, yes, we can have a discussion about the POCSO Act and the problems with the POCSO Act. For example, what's being shown here, mandatory reporting of sexual offenses. It's a crazy provision. And the reason it's a crazy provision is because in a school, for example, the child cannot go and tell his teacher that he has been sexually assaulted. Why? Because then the teacher will have to go on pain of imprisonment to the police.
Right.
I was asked to represent, and I couldn't because I had too many other cases that day, but I was asked to represent a mother who had made a complaint to the school authorities saying that her child had been sexually assaulted, boy, and had committed suicide. And then the mother herself was prosecuted because why didn't she go to the police? This is what the POCSO Act mandatory reporting is doing to the people who love our children.
I want to understand from both the lawyers on the panel that is it now about protecting the rights of an adolescent here, or is it about a commitment to uphold the law?
Let Mihira speak, because since I've been speaking, and I'll come back.
I think, look, I think we're all agreed that the POCSO Act itself is very problematic. So, leave aside this specific law. But in general, if you are asking, is it about protecting the rights of adolescents, both male and female, or about upholding the law? I think that the law has to be interpreted in such a way as to uphold the rights of the parties. And there's a lot of scope for interpretation. I think that the POCSO Act does not give enough leeway for that, and that's a big problem with the Act. But there should be some room for interpretation where the rights and preferences, where insofar as they can be ascertained, should be taken into account. And the best interest, most importantly, the best interest as determined by, taking into account the preferences of the minors as well as the people who are responsible for them.
Okay. Kasturi, thank you for your patience. So your thoughts before I bring in others. Please go ahead.
I do have another debate in 3 minutes, so I will try to be as concise as possible. Thank you, Karuna Nandi, for bringing up some very salient points, as well as Ms. Ranjana. For me, it was like there was a movie in the 90s called Benam Badshah, which was about two adults. It was a story of two adults where an adult woman who's a victim of rape chooses to go and find succor with her rapist. And at that time, we thought, okay, this is a movie that was accepted by the masses, but it's a horrible idea. I mean, this is the kind of regressiveness that society has been placing on women for decades, for centuries. It's a culturally mandated thing, and we're trying to fight against it. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Act, let's be very clear. In 1929, when the Child Marriage Restraint Act came up, the age of consent or the age of marriage, so to speak, was 14 for the girl and 18 for the boy. Why did we change it? Why did we revise it to 18 for the girl and 21 for the male? I feel like now we've taken a big step backward. I mean, I understand and I appreciate the compassionate judgment that the Supreme Court gave, that Justice Oka gave in his final verdict. Because what had happened in this particular case was that the girl was completely demonized by the High Court.
That's right.
The Supreme Court, in the end, kind of upheld the same consequence. Not the verdict, but the consequence is the same. The guy got away. Okay, the guy, nothing, no punishment, because the girl is crying her guts out. She has a baby. She's a teenager with a baby, and she doesn't want her one source of support to disappear because everybody else has abandoned her in the few years. I think it's been 2 years since this case started, and society has completely abandoned her. So I really am with Mihira when she says, think of the mother, think of the parents. You cannot go to court and say, I mean, in a normal case, we're not talking about section 142. I think in normal society, in civilized society, I don't think 14-year-olds
Kasturi, we are thinking
have the
about
right to...
whose mother? We are thinking about this victim who's a mother herself, or are we thinking about the victim's mother?
You know, both. That is true. I mean, here we have a teenager who has brought another child into the world. I mean, it's not her fault alone, but it's society. But I feel like law should not submit to social regression. Law should be a tool to get us out of the malaise that we face in society. Instead, we are stuck in a rut where we don't know whether we need to do this compassionately or whether we need to follow the line of the law. I mean, it's really unfortunate. I think the parents of a teenager who has been in a consensual relationship with a much older guy, I'm the mother of a teenager. You put me in that situation, I'm going to be like, what the hell? My daughter doesn't know jack shit. She is not in a position to make life decisions at 14. It's not happening. If you want, keep it at abeyance. Give a provision in POCSO where you keep it at abeyance till the victim comes to adult age and then make a decision. But do not go ahead and just marry. What did the court do today? Marry the girl. I mean, she was already married, and not even a symbolic punishment. Nothing. This is going to completely encourage a whole generation of sexual offenders. I'm very afraid about that.
Ranjana Kumari, the point being made here is also the other view. And Ms. Kumari, my question is, because the top court has gone ahead and said that the broad directives for nationwide compliance with child protection laws, mandating that the judgment be circulated to all states and union territories for review and policy action. What will this actually imply?
Well, that's what is shocking also, that till date we have not circulated it. Till date, nobody has such information. Why? Why? When we have POCSO, we have all kinds of cases which are coming up. So I think there is a deeper debate.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I thank everybody on the panel, but I have to leave. Thank you so much.
Sure, Kasturi. Thank you so much. Let's bring in others on the panel. Continue with the discussion. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, Maria. So the question is between agency and consent. The court has looked at her consent and also, of course, the court's perception that law has really unintentionally harmed the one who law was supposed to protect. But what agency did she have? What agency does she have to take that decision? And that's the whole thing at the moment in India, that when we look at women's rights, when we look at girls and teenagers' rights, we have to accept the fact that we are not giving them any agency. Then how do we believe in, or how do we justify their consent? One mother just now said that I will not keep it in abeyance till a girl is 18. I mean, 18 or 21 is not what is important. Important is that the girls who are at this age, and if they have gotten into this kind of a relationship where you saw the whole story. I mean, I just read the whole story very carefully. I mean, here's the sister involved, here is, so all those circumstances in some way or the other looks like that pushed her into it. Then she had no option and choice, and she just, this could be my interpretation and interpretation of someone like me, but
ma'am,
I just want to question her? What agency does she have to make that decision?
But ma'am, who assisted her in making her understand her rights and options?
Nobody assisted her.
She's a 13, 14-year-old.
Look at the way the whole thing unfolded, you know. She gets involved with him, then of course she gets married to him, then of course sexually is used. I won't say what court is saying now, sexually he was not using her, he was in love with her. And then, you know, imagine such cases coming from all over the country. Imagine it's happening everywhere. How do we protect our teenagers? How do we the girls are, you know, given the right to protect and all to walk out of such a relationship? What choice does she have? Family has disowned her. Where will she go? She might as well live in this relationship and she might as well accept, because child is also involved. Don't forget that. And a single girl of that age trying to bring up a child. So what perception are we talking about? Perception is the compulsion here. The kind of circumstances she is a compulsion. So I would say that there is a whole idea of consent and agency. If there is no agency, you can't really say that this is her consent.
Okay.
That's what my whole argument is about.
Let's try and wrap it up. And I'm going to begin with you, Ms. Nandi. You know, of course, we are trying to understand that how this entire crime in one view is being viewed, you know, what was seen as a crime is now being seen as a right of a victim who decides to save the person who inflicted her that crime. But so it's a very complicated case.
Yeah.
Do you think what Ms. Kasturi said, particularly even if it was about symbolic punishment, the accused should have been given any punishment and that was needed? Ms. Nandi.
What Ms. Kasturi said a couple of very interesting things. The first thing she said was that there should have been a symbolic punishment, and I tend to agree with that. And the second thing she said was that, and that's a very interesting idea that could be perhaps read into the law, or the parliament could consider it. I mean, the details would obviously, we would all have to think about it a bit more. But that while, and this is an interesting point that Mihira Sood also raised, a different point. Mihira said that the evolving capacities of the child should be recognized. Now, consent is not a binary. While a 13-year-old, in my view, has absolutely no capacity to provide informed consent, and Madhavi Diwan's opinion on that here is quite clear as well and contributed to the judgment, there is the evolving capacity of the child. The child has feelings. The child also has sexual feelings. Does the child have the ability to, in an informed manner, act on those sexual feelings, particularly when faced with a 25-year-old or, you know, thereabouts? Absolutely not. Where does that leave us? We have to think about the system that deals with children, not just as penal alone. If there is going to be a paternalistic law that says that they have no agency whatsoever in these matters till the age of 18, then the state absolutely must. There is no option but to provide welfare options.
Okay.
To provide proper homes, a great system where they can go. Is this possible? Not today. It's not.
Okay.
Like, you really should visit one of these welfare homes. These are terrible places, you know? And this is why women in domestic violence situations do not leave if they can't go back to their parents and if they don't work, because going to these shelter homes is not an option.
Right.
The child.
Okay.
Therefore, I think Justice Oak's wake-up call for the welfare system to really fix itself. And I think that is the main message that we should take away from this.
Okay. 30 seconds to you, Mihira Sood. Of course, we are wrapping up this discussion,
I just want to talk very briefly about, you know, when we say that somebody doesn't have agency, I think all of us, we all live in a patriarchal society. It's not as if I or you or Karuna or, you know, Ranjana, any of us are not, you know, living in this kind of society. All of our choices, all of the agency that we also think we are exercising is to some extent mediated by the limitations that we see on our choices and the sort of calculations that we make on a daily basis. So it's not that any of us is operating in a system, or forget in India, anywhere in the world, it's not that any woman is really operating in a system of complete 100% agency. So, we have to accept that. We have to accept that, this level, limited agency is also a form of agency, I think. And I think in the facts of this particular case, and I mean, I don't want to get too stuck on this case because, as I said, it should not be taken as precedent. Okay. We should really be talking about the larger issues around it. But I think in the facts of this particular case, she married the man at 18. So it was, an ongoing relationship for 4 years. And I suspect that is also something that would have weighed with the judge. That the decision to get married to him or
she chose to be in that relationship.
Was something that was taken when she was an adult.
Yes.
And, whether or not we like it, that has to be given some respect.
Yes. Okay. All right. Of course, this is a discussion which will continue in its multiple forms and facets now. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Karunanandi, Mihira Sood, Kasturi, and Dr. Ranjana Kumari. That's all from me on this edition of The Big Fight. I'll be seeing you next week. Thanks so much for watching.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7. This week on India Sense. India's bustling UAV industry post-Operation Sindoor. Northeast connectivity, how New Delhi is cutting out the Dhaka threat. And with its CPEC tentacles in Afghanistan, China readies to drain Kabul.
All this and more only on India Sense with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down by Pakistan-backed cowards.
When you interact with people on ground, you're able to reflect their sentiments much better.
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time. It's a prime time that's unmissable.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor. Only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights?
To the special show on NDTV, I'm joined by legend and stalwarts of Indian film industry. Let me start by introducing them to you. The legend himself, Kamal Haasan, also the musical maestro A.R. Rahman, and one of the finest actors, versatile actors of Tamil film industry, Silambarasan, also known as Simbu. Thank you to all of you for joining on this show, and it's a privilege and honor to be here. Mr. Kamal Haasan, let me start with you first. Of course, you've been answering this question for the last several hours and for the last several days, but I'd like to repeat a collaboration with Mani Ratnam after more than 30 years. Take us through what really led you to creatively collaborate with him once again, and why now, and why did it take so long?
Why now, we have no answer, but when we started collaborating, let me see, 50 years back.
Yeah.
So that we never had.
Back to collaboration is happening
No,
now for the second
it's a continuous collaboration. It's happening. It doesn't matter if we don't make films together.
Okay.
But we are independently making films we dreamt of.
Yeah.
And coming together is coming back into the same intellectual family.
Sure. But so how has it evolved over the years? I mean, creatively, how has it evolved over the years collaborating
we have.
with him?
It's not the same Mani
It's not
Ratnam
the
I
same.
saw
So
in
what-
Nayak.
what's the kind of
And I
energy
hope
that
it's
he
not the
brings?
same Kamal Haasan he's working with, because then it's pointless.
So what's the kind of energy that he brings in? Could you describe that for us?
Fantastic. It's very difficult to hide our excitement. So I think we both that way are good actors. We try to keep it down. He also. He is very excited. I can see that when he's excited. But we don't. When he says, I'll watch, I'm also watching his eyes.
So
Because if he does that, he's got an idea. And then he'll say, what is that? Show me. And that's when I told you, I think the previous, he'll say, go in and speak what you said. Now try singing it.
Oh, wow.
That's how it goes.
Okay.
And it's very interesting unraveling what's going on in his mind. By the time you're finished with the job, then you'll understand it after the recording is over and you get the copy. Oh, this is what he was trying to do.
Wow. Mr. Rahman, you know what I wanted to ask you is, this is your 18th film with Mani Ratnam, right? It is obviously a magic collaboration. There's no doubt about it.
Good number, no? 18. 8 plus 1, 9. No, kidding.
18th or 19th. I'm sorry.
No, 18th,
18th, right? Yeah. So it is a magical collaboration. Everybody speaks of Mani Ratnam plus A.R. Rahman, the magic you bring. How different was this one? Because this is an action film, I guess the first action film by Mani Ratnam, right? So how...
The difference is here. Here.
No. Action films he has done. Nayakan itself, you don't remember it as action film. And after the release, you won't remember this as an action.
Oh, okay. So that's the
It has got
catch.
action.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you will not remember that film only for that.
Okay.
It's just a part of
All right. So that's the catch here. So this is not only action. There's more to it. So, you know, musically, how would you say this is different from your previous collaborations with Mr. Mani Ratnam?
I think music, first of all, him coming in makes it epic. And the combination, look at the poster.
Yeah.
It's great, you know. And so the whole vibration changes, the whole, you know. And I approached it like an international film. I mean, all Mani Ratnam film is an international film, you know. I was once in Warner Brothers. There's one lady who ran, white lady who ran, when I was leaving Warner, and said, if you ever meet Mani Ratnam, tell him I watched Dil Se 40 times. So he's got fans all over the world. And him combining with him is epic. So, and he's somebody who would accept anything.
Okay.
There's no, he doesn't see cultural coherence, or he sees cinema as an art. So I see the same way. I don't, oh, this place is Rajasthan, this is what I should do, this place is, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
If you're like, what will make the scene different and what will subliminally tell you the story? And because, you know, you've seen gangster films, unless you have a different treatment and unless you treat it with your own imagination, like see his point of view, how he sees the film, my point of view, how I want to hear the film. This is what makes this movie. And collaboratively, in complementing each other, coming up with ideas which should change the experience which what audience would have.
Certainly. And, obviously this is a dream collaboration. Simbu, to you, when I was talking to people about this interview, we obviously say, okay, Mr. Kamal Hassan, A.R. Rahman, Mani Ratnam. And there are people, Simbu's also there, right? Simbu, I mean, the influence that you have among the younger audience is something that's spellbinding. But you're working with the stalwarts of the industry. So take us through your, experience. How has this experience sort of enhanced your craft?
Of course, it has enhanced my craft a lot because he's always been, I've called him as an on-screen guru. So with Rahman sir, I've worked with Rahman sir. With Mani sir, I've done a film previously. So I had an experience to gather from my gurus. But with Kamal sir, this is the first time. And what was very interesting for me is to see both Mani sir and Kamal sir on the set, how they are like exchanging what they want and how he's telling him what he wants and how Kamal sir gives him so many variations and variety of, expressions or the mood of the scene. And I don't know how to put it, that chemistry which they both have is a very unique thing. And that was it was very nice for me to, look at that and learn. So it was like more of a learning process. The only thing which I had to be always like reminding myself is, okay, now you're not here as a student to learn all this. You have to perform as well. You also have a character, a role to play. So concentrate. Right. So it was like I was doing both together.
Yeah, so, learning as well as performing.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Both of them have killed it actually. Thug life language. Both of them have killed it.
Killed it, yeah. Hashtag killed it. So that's another question that I wanted to ask about the name Thug Life itself. It's a very Gen Z term, right? I mean, these days, hashtag Thug Life. So how did you sort of come up with it? Was it your idea or was it?
He's Gen Z.
He is Gen Z.
Yeah, I'm Gen Z.
Okay.
Yeah, we meet sometimes on Instagram without saying hi to each other. I see his footprints. And I don't leave footprints.
You put hashtags there.
Yeah, when he said about Rajasthan, he'll go to Rajasthan, but you'll see his footprints there. Because it's his journey he wants to tell you about.
That's true.
My trip to Rajasthan is how he looks at it.
Nice.
So whole art is my point of view.
Absolutely.
And I'm letting you see it and see whether you like it.
For sure. And so, I was just seeing the teaser, the song, the character. Obviously, you're not letting us know much other than, some complex layered characters. But if you can just delve into the characters, into the roles.
Why would we?
And the preparation for it. Okay, preparation. Let's
see.
Okay, preparation.
Yeah. Why would he release a song face by face?
But if you can take us through the challenges in terms of preparation, because I saw so many faces of yours, sir. I mean, that was like,
what you should know only we have said. Anything you ask more, I think will be a spoiler. That's all. We are worried about that.
Spoilers.
Nothing else. We're so happy that we don't want to blurt out good points of the film. We are already saying it.
Okay.
You will discern it. Like I told about his song, what was he asking me to do? And you will understand. The moment you see the film, the trailer will make more sense to you.
Okay.
You
so
will go back to the
wait
trailer.
For a few more days, yeah. And sir, Rahman sir, I wanted to ask you, how has music evolved over the years? We are talking about, transcending language barrier, transcending regional barriers. So what are the challenges that you see? Of course, you from 90s era to the streaming era, how has music really evolved over the years? And what challenges do you really face on a day-to-day basis in terms of
I think for me, I get paid to learn. I always think that people are paying me to learn.
If you come in young, that's what you realize.
Yeah.
So you get paid and then you say, what else can I learn and give? Not what I can shell out, which is in my bank.
Yeah.
My bank has got limited money or knowledge.
Yeah.
But expanding my knowledge is what the thrill is.
Right.
That's what keeps me going.
Expanding
I can
knowledge.
expand my knowledge, expand my vocabulary of musical sensibility.
In every field.
Yeah.
He was not speaking like that when he was in school. He evolved, and the words he says are getting deeper and deeper and deeper as his
And cinema itself,
enhances
sir,
his
from
experience.
theatres to OTT, and you have, made an attempt to make sure that there is an 8-week gap between the release, between the theatrical release and OTT from the previous 6 weeks.
We didn't even demand. We requested, we asked, and we explained to them why it is important. And they understood as entrepreneurs. And they understood the vision and agreed. So we are grateful.
So, but cinematic experience in itself, because this is going to be a worldwide release on June 5. Thug Life is going to release worldwide on June 5. So in terms of the theatrical release, in terms of cinema going experience, how has it changed over the years? Do you really, do you think OTT releases are great? People being spoiled for choice is great? Or do you still think that the magic of going to theaters and really looking forward to that is something that's dying down now?
Congregation is something people will like. Whether it's in religion, music, they enjoy it better when they're standing and not even sitting in an open auditorium, which one set of musicians will call noise. For them, it is music. They've discovered something fantastic, which their forefathers gave them, but they've changed it.
The lockdown has taught us what congregation is, what the joy of congregation is. That's why I think the success of all the shows, even India abroad, is massive. It's gone to $1 billion.
Nothing will take it away for the artist. Not AI. As long as you're a true performer and without hubris, nothing will topple you.
Perfect, sir. Last question. What is going to be audience's biggest takeaway from Thug Life, in terms of its delivery, in terms of its music, in terms of its production, in terms of acting? What is going to be the biggest takeaway for audience, considering that most of your films in the past has been, socially impactful? There is a message in most of your films in the past. So can we expect something similar?
Well, I can say, because we have not gone into cliches. So let me give you a cliche answer. Crime doesn't pay.
Sorry?
Crime doesn't pay.
Oh, okay.
However much it pays, that is a loan, not your own, because you stole it. Crime is not yours, so it'll be taken back. And so crime doesn't pay. It only lends to criminals money.
So you, sir, what do you think?
That's what this film says. That's what I took away from it.
For me, it's an experience. It's an experience which will be different, or the combination of all of us together. And I was surprised that sometimes, I would think about a certain music for him, and last week I just tried to change something, and in the whole action, everything changed. And I was so surprised. Even though I've been doing this for 32 years, that switch completely changed the whole thing. What he represents, or what he is on the screen. Everything changed.
And Simbu, for you?
For me, I think today the people's attention span has become very less, and all the time we are either in the phone or something. Just to do normal work, normal job itself, we get bored. So I think this film will definitely engage you. It will keep you occupied. So I think that's very important to do a film where people are not looking at the phone. And so I think all of us, everybody has worked very hard for that. And I hope it pays off.
All right, looking forward to the film. Thank you so much, Kamal Hassan sir, A.R. Rahman sir, as well as Simbu, for joining us on this show on NDTV. Thank you.
The last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Genzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Jaggi brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
These are the visuals that are coming in. Let's go full frame with it.
For every big news story,
you can't defend the indefensible Ruchira Kamboj, but that's what Pakistan has been doing for a very, very long time.
We are sifting through a lot of information. Some is right, some is not right. But I think we are
India
right
tunes in to NDTV.
In fact, on NDTV, like we've been doing for the last few hours, we've been
for fast, clear, and credible news.
We've also been, busting a lot of misinformation that's been coming in.
When I was standing on the road, I saw these lights going off in the sky, and I could hear
where credibility
sounds of like
comes
what sound
first.
like blasts happening.
When Pakistan started shelling and first shell landed here, you can see this.
Well, we have reached at ground zero, and this village is
NDTV. First, fast, factual.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor, only on NDTV 24/7.
पाकिस्तान को किसी भी तरह की आर्थिक सहायता टेरर फंडिंग से कम नहीं है।
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. You're watching the News Night and I'm Deepthi Sachdeva. Remember, India is unleashing a scathing terror dossier. It is a direct strike when it comes to Pakistan's state-sponsored terror empire. And literally, it's an empire. Right from the Lashkar-e-Toiba to the Jaish-e-Mohammed and their cohorts. The names are well known. Everyone knows these names. And the proof this time is damning. Now, post-Pahalgam, you also have Islamabad that has reportedly pumped about 14 crore, and this is a truth, it is not a fake news, about 14 crore into just rebuilding those terror camps in Muridke and Bahawalpur. Remember, those are many of the other terror camps that have been struck by India, total 9 of them. On your screens, you're looking at these two images from Muridke and Bahawalpur, the headquarters of the Jaish-e-Mohammed and the Lashkar-e-Toiba that Pakistan wants to rebuild. And for that, it is already funneling in a lot of money. And now, also armed with a lot of this concrete evidence, what India is planning to do is moving decisively to push Pakistan back onto the FATF grey list. Now, FATF is a financial action task force. On the show tonight, we'll tell you more about it, how it operates, what is the mandate, and why is this grey list such an important thing right now for India and the world. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, is a move that is meant to literally force Islamabad to choose. Either it abandons terror or it struggles for every rupee of that international aid. Like the Prime Minister said, ki ek penny ke liye we will ensure that we force Pakistan. So will the world confront that betrayal? Or once again, you will have the world wanting to look away, like it happened during the IMF, where Pakistan actually walked out with that bailout, in spite of the fact that India has made it very, very clear that this is a rogue state that cannot be given money like this. So what is a question that we are asking on the news night? I will also introduce our panel of guests. And the critical question continues to be that when it comes to Pakistan, this possibly is a big financial strike that you're looking at. Pakistan will pay for terror. That is what India has made absolutely clear. Let me say good evening to our panel of guests. I do see Saket Mishra, who's an investment banker right now. It's a pleasure and an honor to also have Ashok Sajanhar, who's a former diplomat on the show. And as always, we also have William Butter, independent economic advisor, and also the former professor of economics and the chief economist at Citi and EBRD. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Let's begin by asking first up Ashok Sajanhar the straight questions that we will put in focus, because these are straight questions that will help you understand why the story today is important and what is it about India and this big financial strike that we will study in the next few minutes. The FATF news, is that real when it comes to the terror state Pakistan? Will that actually happen, or will we see the FATF also buckling under pressure? This brings us to our second straight question. India's dossier. Remember, there is a dossier that India is working on, and multiple dossiers have been given, so no two bones about that. But the point is, will that force action? Will we see the world? Will we see the agencies taking a note? This brings us to our third straight question now, that is on your screens. What about the world? Because India has made it very clear that whether anyone supports us or not, we are fighting this good fight against terror. But what about the world? Can the world still ignore Pakistan's complicity? And what about right now India's 33-country outreach to suffocate Pakistan? Remember, there is already result coming in. We've heard an important statement coming in from Germany, and I'm going to tell our viewers about that in just a moment. This brings us to our fifth final straight question right now. What about China? Because people talk of the elephant in the room, but this is the dragon in the room. Will we be able to talk about China? Isn't the onus on China? And what about the US? Will the US also act? Or US, being self-centric as it is, will want to look the other way? I also now do see Rajat Sethi, and good evening to him. He's also a columnist and a political analyst joining us. Ashok Sajanhar sir, let's begin by asking you, what do you think? We've seen the IMF literally giving Pakistan that dole, but what about the FATF? Do you believe that there is good enough evidence this time around and the world has to take a note?
Yeah, thank you very much, Deepthi, for having me on the show. You know, you asked some very, very interesting and important questions. Now, you said, how is FATF going to react? Let's face it, FATF is not as much an institution in itself, that it is comprised of all these many states, countries which come together. And they take decisions, whether a country is to be put in the grey list or black list, or has it to be removed from there. And what do these countries really act upon? They act upon their own interest. They act upon, whatever in terms of geopolitics, the way they are able to view it and the way they are able to witness it. So we have, countries like you mentioned, two countries. You have countries like China, you have countries like the United States, and you have many other countries. Now you would see that, some of these countries, and particularly as far as FATF is concerned, if more than 2 or 3 countries, they oppose the listing of any country in the grey or the black list, then it is not accepted. So, it's a very, very high bar that you have to achieve for getting any country covered under the FATF. So really, it will depend upon, India and the likes of India, who feel that, there has to be zero tolerance as far as terrorism is concerned. And I think what Dr. Jaishankar has gone out, what these 33 countries that you mentioned. You know, I'll be very happy to discuss about what will be the motivations of China, what are the motivations of the United States, because you see the sort of commentary that has been emanating from the United States after this 4-day conflict between India and Pakistan. We can discuss that. But the bottom line there is countries will act according to how they perceive their own geopolitical interest.
Absolutely. So, you know, we will touch upon both China and US in just a moment. Let's get the opening comments from everyone. And also, as Ashok Sajjanhar was speaking, on our screens, you're looking at more details. For those of you wondering, what is this FATF? What does it do? What is the mandate? What is the importance of this grey list? And what is the Pak connection to the FATF? Because you would look at the entire timeline, how Pakistan was into that list, then it moves away from that list. And right now, remember, just in one line, the news point is that India wants to ensure that Pakistan goes back to the grey list of the FATF, because this is where the real choking of Pakistan will begin. You've seen the Indus Water Treaty, you've seen a lot of their terror bases hit. But Rajat, why is it that the world today is not willing to listen to India? I mean, in spite of so much evidence on the table, how many more people need to die? How many more dossiers do we need to give to the world?
I think it's such an important question, and it it stems from biases. It stems from a complete lack of understanding of the issue at hand, and it also goes to a level of racism, if I were to say. It is a way with which the West sees a cultural or a civilizational state like India as if it's on the 180-degree opposite to their ways of life and their ways of thinking, that they have never put in the amount of effort that you would expect them to put in. And I think this is where, mixed with their sense of degrees of biases which come in because of shoddy reportage which happens in the New York Times and the CNN, that they tend to believe that this is no longer about a victimizer. India is the victimizer in this whole case. And I believe this just complicates the whole narrative business for us in multiple dimensions. What we failed, I mean, one clear example was what happened in Pahalgam. Pahalgam was a terror attack that happened on India. We were the victim. But look at the global narrative. Look at how CNN and the New York Times and the European media houses portrayed us as if we are the aggressor trying to do aggression against Pakistan. Now, if you do not address this systemic biases, including the IMF, that no matter how hard we try and present the facts, all of these stakeholders tend to ignore those facts and go back to their basic biases, which are, which have condensed and solidified over for decades now. And I think this is where India's exercise of engaging with the world requires a complete reset. We need to find an alternate strategy. We need to find a way of engaging through our consulates and embassies in a whole different way.
Okay.
We have to assume that nobody understands India at all. And with that assumption, we need to kickstart our engagement with the world. And I think only then you will be able to convince the World Banks and the IMFs and the FATFs understand why systemic biases are there.
Absolutely. I think you hit a lot of good points. And I must also say that we do not cry for validation coming in from the West or anywhere else. India has made it very clear that we are going to be fighting our own wars no matter what. We will draw our own red lines no matter what. And we don't want any validation. On your screens, you're looking at all these people who are terrorists. They are right now in Pakistan. Now, Saket, before I come to you, does America, does China not know about what Pakistan is up to? China supplies so many defense armaments to Pakistan. The world is aware. Just recently, there were reports also coming in of 14 crore that has been funneled into rebuilding of the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters after India pummeled those terror bases, Willem. So, why is the world looking the other way?
Well, the world is very bad at confronting terrorism unless it occurs on a country's own doorstep. So I'm sure that both the US government and the Chinese government, which indeed provides Pakistan this 81% of its military hardware imports, that both these governments know that the Pakistani government basically supports these terrorist activists in Kashmir and on the border with India generally. But it's unlikely that we'll see any drastic action. It is true that Pakistan was on the grey list of the FATF from 2018 to 2022. So it's not impossible that they would be put back on. But I think they will want to see a greater urgency, a greater threat to their own security before they will vote to put Pakistan back on the grey list or even on the blacklist. So I'm not optimistic that this will happen anytime soon.
Now, why are you not optimistic? I mean, why don't you help our viewers understand why do you believe that this is so difficult? Why is it such a big ask?
Well, if, say, the World Bank and the IMF, who are two institutions that are currently in focus because they've agreed to increase the loans to Pakistan in the case of the fund by over 2 billion, and there's currently this request pending with the World Bank to make another 10 billion available over, 20 billion available over a 10-year period. But I think the reason that the US is reluctant is that they feel if they help cut off Pakistan financially, Pakistan will get even closer to China. And that is something that would worry them from a point of view of geopolitical and military security. Pakistan, like India, is a nuclear power, and they probably don't want to push them to the point that they could engage in providing nuclear resources to Iran or other countries that are striving to become nuclear as well. So I think one has to look at this really from a global political, military perspective. This is not just a Pakistani-Indian issue.
You know, Willem, I'm so glad that you haven't minced your words. You've been as direct as possible. And I know that Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar would want to come in right there, but I want to get in Saket quickly because he hasn't spoken yet. You spoke of the nuclear blackmail. You know, India, Rajat, has made it very clear that no amount of nuclear blackmail is going to threaten us. So what if Pakistan has nuclear weapons? Rajnath Singh has said, Saket, very, very clearly that can you trust a rogue state like Pakistan with nuclear weapons also? So we need intervention, whether it is the UN, whether it is the IMF, whether it is the FATF, whether it is the IAEA. All these agencies, Saket, cannot be mute spectators to what's going on.
Thank you very much for having me online. I would go with Ambassador Sajjanhar. I think it's slightly more subtle than, merely going and browbeating or trying to convince people. Everybody knows what's Pakistan. It's because China knows that Pakistan is a failed state that China decided not to give them any more money. That's why they went to the IMF. We're talking about $10 billion, but China actually requires $129 billion over the next 5 years. So Pakistan's real problem is a 2T problem. It's terrorism and thuggery. Terrorism because they keep funding it, and because fundamentally the Pakistani establishment, and by that I would say the ISI even more than the military, cannot get itself unentangled from all the various terrorist groups that they have spawned. Second is thuggery, and that's one at the political level in Pakistan, because we've got a bunch of politicians who fundamentally keep looting the country or whatever little is left from the army and terrorist activities. They pay 60% of all their GDP is going to be paying interest on their loans, by the way. So out of this 40%, the remainder goes towards politicians and the army. And the politicians take the money, send their kids abroad, and they sit on the money abroad, which leaves Pakistan with the alternative of how do they continue surviving? Because as you said earlier, it's not state-sponsored terrorism. Pakistan is a terrorist state. It is not sponsorship. They don't have the money to sponsor anything. So what Pakistan then does is it carries on all the nefarious activities, whether it's nuclear research, whether it's ballistic missile research, etc., that other nations, I won't name them necessarily, do not want to do in an international scenario. And the reason why, and that's how they earn money. And so they are a renegade state. Now, why would, therefore, a China not, rather than give their own money, countries like China, for them, the easy answer is to stop the FATF and other international bodies from putting any sort of sanctions on China, on Pakistan, which is perhaps what Ambassador Sajjan was talking about. It's everybody taking their own view.
Yes.
And the last thing is that Pakistan is a failed state. You have to recognize that, as I said at the start, everybody knows it's a failed state. So the real fear and the nuclear blackmail is not on India. The nuclear blackmail is on the rest of the world. People
No, but
are
Saket,
scared.
are we to believe that the world is so helpless in front of a Pakistan, in front of even their army chief, you know, whoever that person believes that he is, he's got himself promoted to a field marshal. Is the world, Saket, so helpless?
No, world is helpless in the sense that they believe that having an army there is an easier solution versus a broken up Pakistan where nobody knows who has control over the nuclear arms. So we need to look at things in a manner. So India is going to present dossiers. India is going to talk about the truth. The fact is it's a failed state. But guys sitting in the US writing strategy papers will be saying, you know, it's better to have a strong man sitting in Pakistan rather than have 20 guys who we don't know and who we can't control really have control over the nuclear button. So it's real blackmail of a terrorist state.
Okay, I just have the last couple of minutes. I want to squeeze the last comments from every one of you gentlemen. Ashok Sajjanar, does this mean that, I mean, we should just give up all hope? Pakistan can continue to do what it does. Everyone knows what Pakistan is. We can't even declare it a terrorist state, and we can let Pakistan have all the money to put into their terror activities.
Not at all. I don't agree with that line of thought at all. You know, whatever, I quite agree with you. You know, you made that statement twice. India will do what it needs to do, irrespective of what the world thinks about it.
Yes.
That's the bottom line as far as we are concerned. You know, that's the new normal that we have established, and we'll not distinguish between the terrorists and the state sponsors of terrorism. You know, those who are promoting will not. But let me make two or three very quick points. You know, I agree with what Saket has said, what the professor has said. You know, the whole world knows that Pakistan is a terrorist state. You look at the UN Security Council 1267 committee report. More than half the terrorists are from Pakistan. Designated terrorists are from Pakistan. More than half the designated terrorist outfits like Jaish, Lashkar, etc. But different countries have different interests. For instance, as far as China is concerned, good terrorists, bad terrorists. You know, those who are coming after me, those who are coming the Uyghurs, they are the bad terrorists. Those who are going after India, they are good terrorists. So I will support as far as Pakistan is concerned. Pakistan is also a very useful tool for China to sort of, you know, keep on poking and pricking India whenever it wants to. As far as US is concerned, Deepti, you and your viewers will know that when Mr. Modi was in Washington, D.C. on the 13th February, the names of all these terrorist organizations in Pakistan, they were mentioned in the joint declaration.
You're right, sir.
LET, JEM, 2611, Pathankot attack, etc., everything. It's not that Mr. Trump doesn't know, but he's looking at some business deals. Maybe he sees that there are, you know, on the crypto thing, he's got some deal signed with Pakistan. On the rare earth minerals, he's got some deal. I know you are running short of time. This is an issue, you know, that we really need to discuss at great length, and we need to go through what are the machinations. Why is Russia interested that, you know, Pakistan should not go into the list. Because again, in addition to what the professor said, last point here, that this is, as far as the, again, US and Russia are concerned, that there is, it's a big state, 200 million. And if it disintegrates, this is the point that Saket also mentioned, what are the consequences? No one knows the consequences. So it is better to keep it, United States to keep it under its charge rather than allow it to go 100% under Chinese influence.
Okay, there's a lot of merit in what you say, sir. I just have the last few seconds. Willem, first to you. India is on a big diplomatic outreach right now. 33 world capitals are being visited by Indian Member of Parliament. You think that is a good enough move to also show the mirror to a lot of these powers who are believing in monkey balancing right now?
I'm afraid that the likelihood of meaningful change in attitudes towards funding Pakistan in the rest of the world is very limited indeed, for the reasons that were stated here earlier. But the risk of Pakistan as a nation collapsing is nuclear power collapsing is almost too frightening to contemplate. And so I think countries like the US and the EU, while they undoubtedly strongly disapprove of this support for international terrorism that comes from Pakistan, will not address it firmly and in a way that really would hurt Pakistan.
Rajat, should India be ready perhaps with a plan B, C, D, Z? I mean, we do not know. The IMF loan actually happened. The FATF grey listing, not sure whether it will happen or not. But then India needs to be fighting that rogue state Pakistan, Rajat.
Yes, absolutely. It requires a full throttle approach, 365 days. We should only be dedicating ourselves and our entire foreign affairs bureaucracy with this singular task of presenting and continue to present. For some years, there was this momentum that, okay, terrorism is not a global issue anymore. It's only India who's trying to peddle this issue. That needs to be resurrected. And no matter at the cost of sounding repetitive, we will have to do that. And Pakistan will continue to remain this global errand boy of multiple big powers around the world. It will continue to do the dirty work that the other powers cannot do, which is containing India. Knowing the fact that India's rise would not be seen as palatable for multiple powers around the world, we will have to be self-dependent, self-confident, and confident in our narrative when we engage with the world. I think this exercise of bipartisanship in reaching out to the world is a very interesting experiment. It needs to be seen as to how effective it is.
Yes.
But this exercise of being on our feet all the time, that is what is needed, not just during the time of crisis, but a perpetual engagement on all quarters is what is expected.
Oh yes, this is a job that you need to be on forever and forever, because clearly you can't change your rogue state that is neighboring Pakistan. Gentlemen, only for war of time. But like Ashok Sajjanar said, that this is an issue that we will keep our focus on, and we'll keep here on Newsnight, coming back to all our experts to keep discussing this entire issue and the Russia connection also. Let's also bring Newsnight's parting shot now. Now, it's an open secret that Pakistan funds terror. It shelters extremists. Remember, this is what the world knows. And now it even dares to bankroll their return. Like you've seen Mudrike and Bahawalpur, those camps being rebuilt. And yet you have the world hesitating. But today you also have Germany that has stood up, and that is backing India's right to self-defense. And what is that clear signal? The signal tells you that the tide possibly is turning. It is doing it slowly, but it is turning. So what's really stopping the FATF? If the FATF, ladies and gentlemen, does not act, then who's enabling terror? Will we have an answer to that question? The clock is ticking, the world must choose. The choice is very simple. The choice is just between justice or complicity. Whether it is US, whether it is China, whether it is Russia. Newsnight will continue to keep its focus on that top story. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7. This week on India Sense. India's bustling UAV industry post-Operation Sindoor. Northeast connectivity, how New Delhi is cutting out the Dhaka threat. And with its CPEC tentacles in Afghanistan, China readies to drain Kabul. All this and more only on India Sense with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard
gunned down by Pakistan.
A federal judge in Boston blocks Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. A 27-year-old man is allegedly the one responsible for posting the unsolicited videos of Bengaluru women metro commuters on social media. He's arrested by the police. India extends airspace closure for Pakistan Airlines till the 23rd of June. The ban imposed on the 30th of April as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people. It was set to expire on the 23rd of May. Germany comes out in support of India and condemns the Pahalgam terror attack, saying they support India's right to defend itself. Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Shab. A federal judge in Boston, Alison Burroughs, blocked the Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students, issuing a temporary restraining order on the 23rd of May. Hours after Harvard filed a lawsuit challenging the ban as unconstitutional retaliation. The administration's move, announced by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, revoked Harvard's student and exchange visitor program certification, citing the university's alleged failure to address anti-Semitism, violence, and ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This ban would have forced nearly 6,800 international students, 27% of Harvard's enrollment, to transfer or lose legal status. And my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us to get us more on this. Vishal, can you clarify the specific legal grounds that the judge cited for issuing this temporary restraining order against the Trump administration's ban? And also, will Harvard anticipate further challenges from the administration?
Well, to start off, Osama, yes, the judge did grant relief to the world's most prestigious university and said in the order that Harvard has proven through its quick statement, through its quick reply to the statement given by the US administration, that if foreign students are not given a space in Harvard, Harvard will almost cease to exist. So the judge was convinced that without the foreign students, there is no Harvard. So that is what the Harvard University said in its complaint that was filed earlier today, that without foreign students, there's no Harvard. So that is what is the crux of the case, and this is a temporary restraining order against the revoking order that the US administration had tried to clamp down on Harvard. But it's a big relief nonetheless for thousands of foreign students that study at Harvard, or around 8,000 of them, and almost 800 Indian students study at Harvard as we speak. And there will also be another about 800 to 1,000 students that will be anticipating entry in the next fiscal year. So all of those students were stuck in limbo in the last 24 hours. So they would have heaved a sigh of relief. But this fight is not yet over. The Trump administration is quite determined in its approach to clamp down on Harvard and try to force it to toe the line. But now all eyes will be on Trump, what he says, because for now we can say that Harvard has won this legal fight for now.
Well, we'll have to wait and watch how the Trump administration responds to this judgment. Vishal Vivek, thank you very much for getting us all the latest. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump, he has warned Apple again against production anywhere other than the United States, saying that Apple would have to pay a 25% tariff if phones sold in the country were not made within its borders. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that he informs Apple CEO Tim Cook that iPhones sold in America are to be built within the country and not in India or any other country. Earlier, there were reports that Apple had assured the Indian government that its investment plans for the country remain intact and India will continue to be a major manufacturing base for its products. In fact, we spoke to Rishabh Bhatnagar earlier today. Listen in.
This is exactly what we have our eyes peeled on next. Clearly, what Apple's commitment towards India and Apple's manufacturing and expansion plans in India haven't gone down very well with the Trump administration. We just saw, even yesterday, we saw the fact that one of Apple's top suppliers, which is Taiwanese giant Foxconn, was also seen to invest an additional $1.5 billion in India to set up factories as well as expand its employer base in India. And what we're seeing is the fact that that has not sat well with the Trump administration, and they've decided to hit back with a 25% tariff. As you rightly said earlier, Apple had assured informally, as well as our government sources had also indicated the fact that there was no change to Apple's expansion plans within India. So, but this latest threat to Tim Cook as well as Apple with regards to their investment plans, it's yet to be seen what sort of impact it will have on Apple's plans in India. Remember, Apple has committed to move a very large part of its manufacturing base to India. That is also in response to also diversifying away from China, which has proven to be a not very stable partner in terms of manufacturing, at least over the last couple of years. So we have our eyes peeled on that, and let's hope that Apple does not, and these latest comments from Trump does not spook Apple away in terms of investment.
The police on Friday arrested 4 of the 7 prime accused in a gang rape case who were out on bail for parading the streets of Recalibrating here in cars celebrating the release. This incident took place on the 28th of May, but the video clippings went viral on social media, drawing criticism from the netizens, prompting the police to act. The Superintendent of Police of Haveri District, Anshu Kumar Srivastav, told the reporters that a case has been registered against the accused persons for unlawful assembly and rash driving.
ಬೇಲ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಅವರು ಸಬ್ಜೇಲ್ ಹಾವೇರಿ ಸಬ್ಜೇಲಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲೂರು ಕಡೆ ಬರುವಾಗ ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಆ ವಿಡಿಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಗಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸ್ 84/25 ಅಂಡರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ 189(2), 191(2), 281, 351(2), 351(3) BNSದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಸ್ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. 5 ಆರೋಪಿಗಳು ಕಸ್ಟಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಂಗ್ ರೇಪ್ ಕೇಸ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಮೀನು ಷರತ್ತು ಉಲ್ಲಂಘನೆ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಜಾಮೀನು ರದ್ದು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
And my colleague Deepak Bopanna joins us on the phone line to get us more on this. Deepak, these people have been booked under the sections unlawful assembly and rash driving, but this is more than these offences if you look at the larger picture, isn't it?
Well, absolutely, and that's where ensuring that such people have a lesson taught is very crucial, because when we spoke to the police department earlier in the day, they did mention one thing, that here they will look at all measures that they can really employ. One is cancellation of the current bail that they've got. Other than that, booking them in fresh cases. When I say fresh cases, here they've already been booked. At this moment, this is for public intimidation and various other charges, of course, and they have already been taken into police custody. So that is somewhere, a welcome sign, considering the fact that this is a very heinous crime that they've actually been booked for. Firstly, it was, on charges of course intimidation, and then for gang rape as well. And after which they secure bail, managed to come out and then flaunt the fact that they've gotten bail as if they've come out, from a victory and then carrying out that parade. But at this point in time, the police acting quite swiftly. They have been picked up. The police are also moving for cancellation of their bail.
All right, Deepak Bopanna, thank you very much for getting us all the latest. India on Friday extended the closure of its airspace for flights operated by Pakistan Airlines by another month till the 23rd of June, according to sources. Now, this ban imposed on April 30th as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people was set to expire on the 23rd of May. In a strong show of solidarity, Germany has extended its full support to India's Operation Sindoor, launched in response to the recent terror attack in Pahalgam. The German foreign minister condemned the April 22nd attack and affirmed his country's commitment to supporting global efforts against terrorism.
Security and global security. We all were appalled by the brutal terrorist attack on India on the 22nd of April. We condemned this attack on civilians in the strongest terms. Our deepest sympathy goes out to all victims and their families. After military attacks on both sides, and India, of course, has every right to defend itself against terrorism, the fact that now a truce is in place is something we appreciate very much. What is important now is that this truce remains stable, that dialogue can happen in order to find bilateral solutions.
Meanwhile, the first scholarly view of Operation Sindoor has landed. It's sharp, dispassionate, and already the most quoted academic lens on what India really achieved. In fact, my colleague Shiv Aroor, he spoke exclusively to the author of the article, Professor Walter Ladwig. Listen in to that conversation.
Professor Ladwig, How does Operation Sindoor, in your view, exemplify restraint in military strategy? And in what ways does it expand India's strategic options for future conflicts, in your view?
First, let me say thank you for having me on, and thank you for the very kind introduction and your words about the piece. I think there's a couple of really notable elements that we've seen here. One, of course, with respect to restraint, is the fact that on night one, as far as we can determine, the operational rules of engagement given to the Indian Air Force were to focus solely on striking the targets related to terrorist infrastructure, not to provoke an engagement with the Pakistani military. And that came with it extremely elevated operational risks for the pilots undertaking this mission, and perhaps is linked to the allegations of that some jets were shot down or damaged on night one. So that is the restraint portion, and it's no small thing. You know, it might be easier for politicians to kind of give such commands, but for the actual individual who has to hold their nerve and follow orders with enemy aircraft in the air, we shouldn't underestimate how demanding that is. With respect to the range of options, I mean, we see strikes now that have expanded beyond simply Pakistan, Kashmir. You know, in 2019, Balakot is, you know, it is in KPK, but realistically, it's just barely across the border. And we're now talking about expanding into Punjab proper, kind of the strategic and cultural heartland. And the range of assets we saw employed, particularly the use of loitering munitions, you know, so-called suicide drones, which, you know, the Indian Air Force is basically imparting a technique and an approach that we've seen in other conflict theaters. So Azerbaijan, Armenia conflict, some of the Middle East conflicts, but the very first time this technology has been employed, and from what we can see, employed to great effect.
The National Investigation Agency conducted a nationwide crackdown on illegal immigrants, arresting 44 individuals across 8 states and 2 union territories. The NIA's operation is aimed to dismantle human trafficking support networks involved in the infiltration and settlement of illegal migrants across the Indo-Bangladesh border. The agency has continued investigations to uncover the entire ecosystem of these networks. The state government's decision to sign up actor Tamanna Bhatia has led to protests and sharp reactions from a Kannada group like Karnataka Rakshana Vedike, which demand that the brand ambassador must be a Kannada star and not a non-Kannadiga. Some activists have even written to the chief minister to find stars like Pooja Hegde or Rashmika Mandana from Karnataka instead of Tamanna. Industries Minister M.B. Patil, though defended the choice of Tamanna and pointed out that the effort was to push sales of the soap in national markets and beyond India. A special panel up ahead is there to grab attention, or is it about grabbing attention, or is there a genuine point to make, is what this story is all about.
Kannada is our identity and Karnataka is our identity. Here it was a committee which looked into this one. They've checked up all these names, you know, like Tamanna Bhatia, then Rashmika Mandana, then Kiara Advani, then Pooja Hegde, everything. They were all engaged with certain products and all this. She was the one available for us for 2 years, our conditions, and she has a 2.8 million followers. It is a pure business strategy for the growth of this one. Here's no question of any disrespecting our Kannada actors and all this. No?
So there's no question of going back on this?
No question of going back. Why should we go back? Our strategy is we don't want to restrict Mysore sandal soap to Karnataka.
Time for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's leading AI smartphone brand.
Jyotiraditya Scindia posted on his social media saying that a new chapter has been added to the development of the Northeast. Today, the Rising Northeast Investors Summit 2025 was inaugurated in Delhi by the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. On this occasion, I welcomed, greeted and congratulated the Honorable Prime Minister.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor. Only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
In the last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Denzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts.
Welcome back. Judge Abhay Oka at his farewell had a message on the judiciary. He urged the Supreme Court to shed its Chief Justice of India-centric image, promoting a more inclusive and transparent approach. He encouraged judges to be proactive and not hesitate in taking bold decisions, ensuring the judiciary remains a beacon of hope for justice. Justice Oka expressed optimism that the Chief Justice of India, Justice Gavai, he could bring about positive changes in the judiciary.
I am very happy that Chief Justice Khanna took us on the path of transparency. Chief Justice Khanna took every decision by taking into confidence every judge of the Supreme Court. The High Courts function more democratically than the Supreme Court because there is an administrative committee in place of first 5 judges. And that administrative committee takes major important decisions regarding the administration. The High Courts function through committees. Somehow I found during last 3 years and more that the Supreme Court is Chief Justice-centric court. And I think we need to change that.
Kamal Hassan and Mani Ratnam, they're reuniting after 36 years for a gritty gangster thriller. In an exclusive interview to NDTV's Radhika Ramaswamy, Kamal Hassan and A.R. Rahman. They spoke about the film. Kamal Haasan said that expect the unexpected from this film, which explores themes of legacy and reinvention, while A.R. Rahman says that the music had to be bold and beautiful to match the film's intensity. Listen in.
A collaboration with Mani Ratnam after more than 30 years. Take us through what really led you to creatively collaborate with him once again, and why now, and why did it take so long?
Why now, we have no answer, but when we started collaborating, let me see, 50 years back.
Yeah.
So that we never had.
Back to collaboration is happening
No,
now for the second
it's
time.
a continuous collaboration. It's happening. It doesn't matter if we don't make films together.
Okay.
But we are independently making films we dreamt of.
Yeah.
And coming together is coming back into the same intellectual family.
Sure. But so how has it evolved over the years? I mean, creatively, how has it evolved over the years collaborating
we have.
with him?
It's not the same Mani
It's not the
Ratnam I
same.
saw
So
in
what-
Nayakan.
what's the kind
and
of
I
energy
hope
that
it's
he
not the
brings?
same Kamal Haasan he's working with, because then it's pointless.
So what's the kind of energy that he brings, and could you describe that for us?
Fantastic. It's very difficult to hide our excitement. So I think we both that way are good actors. We try to keep it down. He also. He is very excited. I can see that when he's excited. But we don't. When he says, I'll watch, I'm also watching his eyes.
So
because if he does that, he's got an idea. And then he'll say, what is that? Show me. And that's when I told you, I think the previous, he'll say, go in and speak what you said. Now try singing it.
Oh, wow.
That's how it goes.
Okay.
And it's very interesting unraveling what's going on in his mind. By the time you're finished with the job, then you'll understand it after the recording is over and you get the copy. Oh, this is what he was trying to do.
Wow. Mr. Rahman, you know what I wanted to ask you is, this is your 18th film with Mani Ratnam, right? It is obviously a magic collaboration. There's no doubt about it.
Good number, no? 18. 8 plus 1, 9. No, kidding.
He's the 19th. I'm sorry.
No,
18th, right? Yeah. So it is a magical collaboration. Everybody speaks of Mani Ratnam plus A.R. Rahman, the magic you bring. How different was this one? Because this is an action film, I guess the first action film by Mani Ratnam, right? So how...
The difference is here. Yeah.
No. Action films he has done. Nayakan itself, you don't remember it as action film. And after the release, you won't remember this as an action.
Oh, okay. So that's the
It has got
catch.
action.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you will not remember that film only for that.
Okay.
It's just a part of
All right. So that's the catch here. So this is not only action. There's more to it.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's leading AI smartphone brand.
These are the visuals that are coming in. Let's go full frame with it. This is
For every big news story,
now from Jammu.
you can't defend the indefensible Ruchira Kamboj, but that's what Pakistan has been doing for a very, very long time.
We are sifting through a lot of information. Some is right, some is not right. But I think we are
India
getting it right
tunes
mostly
in
terms of
to
the
NDTV.
information we put on air.
In fact, on NDTV, like we've been doing for the last few hours, we've been
For
not only
fast,
reporting what's
clear,
happening
and
authentically,
credible news.
We've also been, busting a lot of misinformation that's been coming in.
When I was standing on the road, I saw these lights going off in the
NDTV,
sky, and I could hear
where credibility
sounds of like
comes
what sound like
first.
blasts happening.
When Pakistan started shelling and first shell landed here, you can see this.
Well, we have reached at ground zero, and this village is
NDTV. First, fast, factual.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor, only on NDTV 24/7.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7. This week on India Sense. India's bustling UAV industry post-Operation Sindoor. Northeast connectivity, how New Delhi is cutting out the Dhaka threat. And with its CPEC tentacles in Afghanistan, China readies to drain Kabul. All this and more only on India Sense with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down by Pakistan-backed cowards.
When you interact with people on ground, you're able to reflect their sentiments much better.
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time. It's a prime time that's unmissable.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor, only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights?
India slams Pakistan at the UNSC. Indian envoy says that Pakistan targeted Indian civilians and that Pakistan intentionally targeted religious sites. India extends airspace closure for Pakistan Airlines till the 23rd of June. The ban imposed on April 30th as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack was set to expire on the 23rd of May. Germany comes out in support of India and condemns the Pahalgam terror attack, saying they support India's right to defend itself. A 27-year-old man is allegedly the one responsible for posting unsolicited videos of Bengaluru women metro commuters on social media. He is arrested by the police. And a federal judge in Boston blocks Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Shab. India on Friday slammed Pakistan at the UN Security Council, saying it has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attacks ranging from the 26/11 Mumbai attacks to the barbaric mass murder of innocent tourists in Pahalgam last month. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Parvathaneni Harish, made these comments while delivering a statement at the UN Security Council open debate. Listen in.
Earlier this month, the Pakistani army deliberately shelled our border villages, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring more than 80. There was intentional targeting of places of worship, including gurudwaras, temples and convents, as well as medical facilities. To preach at this body after such behavior is grossly hypocritical. Let us be clear. Protection of civilians should not serve as an argument for protection of UN-designated terrorists.
India on Friday extended the closure of its airspace for flights operated by Pakistan Airlines by another month till the 23rd of June, according to sources. Now, the ban imposed on April 30th as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people. It was set to expire on the 23rd of May. Pakistan, in the meanwhile, issued a NOTAM extending its airspace closure for Indian-registered aircraft operated or owned or leased by Indian airlines or operators, including military flights.
There has been a NOTAM in place. There are no Indian airlines which are being allowed to fly over Pakistani airspace since the tension has taken place between India and Pakistan post-Pahalgam. So there's no change in that. What has now taken place is that Pakistan has issued a fresh NOTAM. In other words, a fresh set of directions extending extending the NOTAM for another period of approximately 1 month. So for 1 month more, Indian airlines will not be able to fly over Pakistan airspace, which means that they have to take a longer route. Be that as it may, Pakistan is very strictly enforcing this because, as we know, day before yesterday, there was an Indigo flight from Delhi to Srinagar, which got caught in some terrible weather, and they knew they were flying into terrible weather. They wanted to get a diversion around into Pakistan airspace. They did contact Lahore Air Traffic Control, but they were denied permission to operate. Now, in the past, when things were relatively normal between India and Pakistan, there have been instances when Pakistan International Airways aircraft have requested permission to fly into India because of weather conditions. But on this particular occasion, and something which reflects the situation between India and Pakistan, that was denied by the Pakistani air traffic controller. We've also managed to get a lot of details about how serious the incident was as a result of that denial. And there are a few more details which have also now come in because the Indian Air Force as well had advised the Indigo airliner, which was then overhead Pathankot, not to veer left or west as the pilot had requested. All of this ended up with the pilot having to pierce this thick wall of storm front, as it were, with massive changes in his altitude, with the aircraft having registered multiple warnings in cockpit, with faulty airspeed data being available to the pilots. The system itself went into what is called alternate law. which is a degraded way in which the pilot can fly the aircraft. 8,500 feet per second at one stage is what it dropped. Remember, the normal aircraft of the A321 class don't drop more than 1,500 to 3,000 feet per minute under normal circumstances. When the plane landed, it became clear that the nose cone was shattered, but fortunately all the pilots were safe. So, it's fairly difficult and challenging times for civil aviation, and that NOTAM is certainly part of all of this.
In a strong show of solidarity, Germany has extended its full support to India's Operation Sindoor, launched in response to the recent terror attacks in Pahalgam. German Foreign Minister condemned the April 22nd attack and affirmed his country's commitment to supporting global efforts against terrorism.
Yes, security and global security. We all were appalled by the brutal terrorist attack on India on the 22nd of April. We condemned this attack on civilians in the strongest terms. Our deepest sympathy goes out to all victims and their families. After military attacks on both sides, and India, of course, has every right to defend itself against terrorism, the fact that now a truce is in place is something we appreciate very much. What is important now is that this truce remains stable, that dialogue can happen in order to find bilateral solutions.
The National Investigation Agency conducted a nationwide crackdown on illegal immigrants, arresting 44 individuals across 8 states and 2 union territories. The NIA's operation aimed to dismantle human trafficking support networks involved in the infiltration and settlement of illegal migrants across the Indo-Bangladesh border. The agency has continued investigations to uncover the entire ecosystem of these networks. The police on Friday arrested 4 of the 7 prime accused in a gang rape case who were out on bail for parading the streets of Aki Allur in cars, celebrating their release. Now, this incident took place on the 20th of May, but the video clippings, they went viral on social media, drawing criticism from the netizens, prompting the police to act. The Superintendent of Police of Haveri District, Anshu Kumar Srivastav, told the reporters that a case has been registered against the accused persons for unlawful assembly and rash driving.
ಬೇಲ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಅವರು ಸಬ್ಜೇಲ್ ಹಾವೇರಿ ಸಬ್ಜೇಲಿಂದ ಆಕಿ ಅಲ್ಲೂರು ಕಡೆ ಬರುವಾಗ ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಆ ವಿಡಿಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಗಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸ್ 84/25 ಅಂಡರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ 189(2), 191(2), 281, 351(2), 351(3) BNSದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಸ್ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. 5 ಆರೋಪಿಗಳು ಕಸ್ಟಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಂಗ್ ರೇಪ್ ಕೇಸ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಮೀನು ಷರತ್ತು ಉಲ್ಲಂಘನೆ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಜಾಮೀನು ರದ್ದು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
The state government's decision to sign up actor Tamanna Bhatia has led to protests and sharp reactions from Kannada groups like Karnataka Rakshana Vedike, which demand that the brand ambassador must be a Kannada star and not a non-Kannadiga. Some activists have even written to the Chief Minister to find a star like Pooja Hegde or Rashmika Mandana from Karnataka instead of Tamanna Bhatia. Industries Minister M.B. Patil, though, defended the choice of Tamanna and pointed out that the effort was to push sales of the soap in national markets and beyond India.
Kannada is our identity and Karnataka is our identity. Here it was a committee which looked into this one. They've checked up all these names, like Tamanna Bhatia, then Rashmika Mandana, then Kiara Advani, then Pooja Hegde, everything. They were all engaged with certain products and all this. Okay. She was the one available for us for 2 years, our conditions, and she has a 2.8 million followers. Yeah. It is a pure business strategy for the growth of this one. There's no question of any disrespecting our Kannada actors and all this. No?
So there's no question of going back on this?
No question of going back. Why should we go back? Our strategy is we don't want to restrict Mysore sandal soap to Karnataka.
Challenges on the security front are increasing in the Indian subcontinent. Uncertainty is increasing in the Indian Ocean region due to the growing tension between India and Pakistan and traditional, non-traditional security threats. After the recent conflict between India and Pakistan, maritime security, it has become a very important issue for India. On all these issues, Chintan Research Foundation, it organized a roundtable conference on Friday on the theme, the Mahasagar Initiative in the current security context.
महासागर इनिशिएटिव मौजूदा परिस्थिति में जो सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस इंडिया फेस कर रहा है अभी, और हमारे साथ जो ऑल पार्टी डेलीगेशन दुनिया के अलग अलग देशों में भी गए हुए हैं, महासागर इनिशिएटिव कितना महत्वपूर्ण है इस संदर्भ में?
बहुत शुक्रिया आपका। देखिए क्या होता है, हम लोग आज के ज़माने में वी आर लार्जली इन्फ्लुएंस जो हम टेलीविज़न पे देखते हैं, और जो वर्तमान में एक बहुत बड़ी सिक्योरिटी क्राइसिस भारत की रही है, जिसमें भारत ने बहुत ही आई वुड से आउटस्टैंडिंग अपना रिस्पॉन्स दिया है, उसमें ज़्यादातर लोगों को लगा कि ये इंटायर क्राइसिस पूरी की पूरी एयर की है। बट ये सत्य नहीं है। सत्य है कि आजकल कोई भी वॉर, और कोई देश नहीं चाहता, इंडिया तो विशेष करनी चाहती है कि हो, लेकिन जब होती है तो मल्टी डोमेन और मल्टी डायमेंशनल वॉर होती है। कोई हिस्सा होता है जो ज़्यादा प्रकट होता है, कोई हिस्सा होता है जो कम प्रकट होता है। बट मुझे कहने में बिल्कुल हेजिटेशन नहीं है कि इसमें इंडियन नेवी ने एक अंडररेटेड वे में, एक क्वाइटली एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रोल प्ले किया है। हम ये जानते ही हैं कि कुछ ऐसे देशों के जहाज़ जो कि हमसे एनिमिकल रखते हैं, वो पहुंच गए थे पाकिस्तान, बट आर नेवी वाज वेल बियॉन्ड दैट टास्क। मतलब जिस प्रकार की घेराबंदी की तैयारी नेवल फोर्सेस ने की थी, जो बहुत कम रिपोर्टेड है, वाज आउटस्टैंडिंग। लेकिन हम इस महासागर इनिशिएटिव को जो एक्चुअली प्लान था इस क्राइसिस से पहले से, चिंतन ने इस इवेंट को तो पहले से प्लान किया था, लेकिन हमने उसमें परिवर्तन किया। हमने उसमें एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट ट्वीक किया कि वी वांटेड टू सी द महासागर इनिशिएटिव इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द प्रेजेंट सिक्योरिटी कॉन्टेक्स्ट। और क्योंकि अगर आप ये देखें कि भारत का जो भूमि बॉर्डर है, जो लैंड बॉर्डर है, वो केवल 6 देशों से है, जबकि अगर आप केवल इंडियन ओशन देखें तो देन वी हैव अ बॉर्डर विद 38 कंट्रीज। तो स्वाभाविक है कि महासागर इनिशिएटिव इज़ ऑफ एक्सट्रीम इम्पोर्टेंस। प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने इसको पिछले वर्ष बहुत ही एक विजन के साथ अपने लागू किया था, बट इसके जो की वर्ड्स हैं हमको नहीं भूलने चाहिए। जो महासागर में एक एस आता है, दैट इज़ सिक्योरिटी, दैट इज़ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग। लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री जी का ये उद्देश्य था कि दिस सिक्योरिटी शुड लीड टू ग्रोथ, एंड दैट इज़ द जी ऑफ महासागर। एक होलिस्टिक ग्रोथ जो कि सब देशों को जो इसमें हैं उसमें साथ जोड़े, और अगर आप इकोनॉमिकली साथ जुड़े हुए हैं तो स्वाभाविक है कि देयर विल बी पीस, बिकॉज इकोनॉमी विल लीड्स टू स्टेबिलिटी, एंड इकोनॉमी एंड स्टेबिलिटी टुगेदर लीड्स टू ग्रोथ एंड पीस।
महासागर इनिशिएटिव के पीछे सोच क्या है? भारत के लिए ये क्यों महत्वपूर्ण है, और आपको क्या लगता है आगे चलकर क्या नया रास्ता खुल सकता है भारत?
इंडिया अपने आप को एक वॉइस ऑफ ग्लोबल साउथ की तरह देखता है, एंड अपनी G20 मीटिंग्स में इंडिया ने कोशिश करी है, प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी ने, कि हम अपने आप को एक विजन फॉर द वॉइस ऑफ द ग्लोबल साउथ की तरह दिखाएं। सो द शिफ्ट फ्रॉम सागर टू महासागर वाज प्राइमरीली दिस, कि आप फोकस इंडियन ओशन से और बढ़ाएं, अपने जोग्राफिकल स्पेस को बढ़ाएं, एंड ट्राई टू रीच द इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन। दैट वाज द मेन आइडिया और द वॉइस दैट हैज बीन गिवन, ऑब्जेक्टिव दैट हैज बीन गिवन टू महासागर, दैट वी आर रीचिंग आउट टू द ग्लोबल साउथ। एंड इट इज़ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग दैट दोनों ही इनिशिएटिव, सागर और महासागर, मॉरिशस में ही हुए थे। सो वी हैव टू सी कि कैसे बिल्टअप हुआ है। एंड कभी भी कोई भी इनिशिएटिव, जैसे इंडियन नेवी ने कोई इनिशिएटिव किया या कोई हमारे गवर्नमेंट ने इनिशिएटिव किया, मैरिटाइम विजन में almost more than 30 ministries involved हैं. It's a whole of a government, it's a whole of a nation approach that we have adopted to build our maritime vision. We will not, मतलब हम एक पर्टिकुलर चीज़ को पकड़ के नहीं बोल रहे हैं कि ये करा है इंडिया ने और ये हमारा विजन है, बट we can find the resonance, उसके हर इनिशिएटिव में उसका एक प्रभाव हमें दिखता है महासागर का।
मैरीटाइम जो बाउंड्रीज है वो अपने आप में एक रोड मैप हो सकता है, एक रोपवे हो सकता है, for boosting not only India's strategic interest in this region but also economic cooperation बढ़ाने के लिए.
Way back in 1946, KM Panikkar ने बोला था कि अगर इंडिया को अपनी प्रेजेंस रखनी है इंडियन ओशन में, it can only make it through navigating the waters of the Indian Ocean. So we have to make sure कि our presence, both geostrategically and as well as militarily, हमारे cooperation हो सारे neighbors के साथ, not just extra territorial power जैसे कुछ nations करते हैं. India has never claimed any territories. India has never claimed any EEZ of any other country. Our aim has been to build up strategic partnerships, to build up economic partnerships, blue economic partnerships, and ensure that there is a sustainable growth. And इसलिए आप देखते हैं कि इंडिया ने climate related, sustainable economy related बहुत सारे initiatives लिए हैं, whether it is International Solar Alliance, whether it is CBDR. So our initiatives have been more focused towards building a sustainable economic growth for all in the region.
In an exclusive interview with NDTV, Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Vishnu Deo Sai discussed the state's crackdown on Maoist forces. The Chief Minister shared insights on the government's efforts to combat Maoist insurgency and improve security in the region.
हम इस वक्त अबूझ बाढ़ में हैं और हमारे साथ छत्तीसगढ़ के मुख्यमंत्री विष्णुदेव साय साहब हैं. विष्णु जी, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका NDTV इंडिया पर. ये जो ऑपरेशन हुआ, बसव राजू जो कि CPI माओइस्ट का महासचिव था, उसको ढेर किया गया, उसके साथ साथ काफ़ी सारे, इसका क्या इम्पैक्ट रहेगा? आपका क्या असेसमेंट है?
देखिए, हम लोगों को सरकार में आए करीब 1.5 साल हो गए हैं और सरकार में आते के साथ और डबल इंजन की भी सरकार है, तो आज जो छत्तीसगढ़ के विकास में एक बाधक है नक्सलवाद, इसको समाप्त करने की मंशा हुई और लगातार ऑपरेशंस हो रहे हैं. ऑपरेशंस में सफलता भी मिल रही है. हमारे देश के यशस्वी गृह मंत्री जी वो कई बार छत्तीसगढ़ आकर हम लोगों का जवानों का हौसला भी अफजाई किए हैं और इसलिए हमारे जवान मजबूती के साथ नक्सलवाद के साथ लड़ रहे हैं. और अभी जो सफलता मिली है, हमको लगता है कि अभी तक का सबसे बड़ी सफलता है, जिसमें माओवाद का जो महासचिव था, पोलित ब्यूरो का सदस्य था बसवा राजू गगन्ना, उसको हमारे जवानों ने न्यूट्रलाइज किया है. इससे नक्सलवाद को एक बहुत बड़ा झटका लगा है. हम कह सकते हैं कि नक्सलवाद की कमर टूट गई है और अब जो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी और माननीय गृह मंत्री जी का जो संकल्प है और मतलब पूरा होने की दिशा में ये और एक मतलब एक ठोस कदम है.
साय साहब, गृह मंत्री अमित शाह ने तो 31 मार्च 2026 की डेडलाइन दी है. आपका क्या असेसमेंट है? क्या उससे पहले भी नक्सलवाद का सफाया हो सकता है?
बिल्कुल, जिस तरह से हमारे जवान उत्साह के साथ लड़ रहे हैं, हमको तो लगता है उससे पहले भी संकल्प पूरा हो सकता है.
Time now for a very short break. More news and updates on the other side.
In the last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Genzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have 2 credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
These are the visuals that are coming in. Let's go full frame with it.
For every big news story.
You can't defend the indefensible Ruchira Kamboj, but that's what Pakistan has been doing for a very, very long time.
We are sifting through a lot of information. Some is right, some is not right. But I think we are
India tunes in to NDTV.
In fact, on NDTV, like we've been doing for the last few hours, we've been
for fast, clear, and credible news.
We've also been, busting a lot of misinformation that's been coming in.
When I was standing on the road, I saw these lights going off
NDTV,
in the sky, and I could hear
where credibility
sounds of like
comes
what sound like
first.
blasts happening.
When Pakistan started shelling and first shell landed here, you can see this.
Well, we have reached at
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump, he has warned Apple again against production anywhere other than the United States, saying that the Apple would have to pay a 25% tariff if phones sold in the country were not made within its borders. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that he informed Apple CEO Tim Cook that iPhones sold in America are to be built within the country and not in India or any other country. Earlier, there were reports that Apple had assured the Indian government that its investment plans for the country remain intact and India will continue to be a major manufacturing base for its products.
This is exactly what we have our eyes peeled on next. Clearly, what Apple's commitment towards India and Apple's manufacturing and expansion plans in India haven't gone down very well with the Trump administration. We just saw, even yesterday, we saw the fact that one of Apple's top suppliers, which is Taiwanese giant Foxconn, was also seen to invest an additional $1.5 billion in India to set up factories as well as expand its employer base in India. And what we're seeing is the fact that that has not sat well with the Trump administration, and they've decided to hit back with a 25% tariff. As you rightly said earlier, Apple had assured informally, as well as our government sources had also indicated the fact that there was no change to Apple's expansion plans within India. So, but this latest threat to Tim Cook as well as Apple with regards to their investment plans, it's yet to be seen what sort of impact it will have on Apple's plans in India. Remember, Apple has committed to move a very large part of its manufacturing base to India. That is also in response to also diversifying away from China, which has proven to be a not very stable partner in terms of manufacturing, at least over the last couple of years. So we have our eyes peeled on that, and let's hope that Apple does not, and these latest comments from Trump does not spook Apple away in terms of investment.
On to some sports news. India's golden boy, Neeraj Chopra, he has made the nation proud yet again, this time in Poland, winning a silver medal. Chopra's achievement showcases his exceptional skill and dedication to the sport that has earned him the recognition on the international stage. He has bagged a silver medal. He has shown again in a javelin event in Poland. In fact, Sriram joins us to get us more on this. Sriram, although it wasn't Neeraj Chopra's day today, but the fact that he has finished second in the last 22 events, it goes on to tell you the kind of consistency that this man has produced over the last 22 events. Just take us through this particular tournament that he participated in.
Well, Osama, it's another event, another medal for Neeraj Chopra at this point. I mean, as you said, the nation as a whole falls short of words to express just how incredible he has been at this sport, the consistency and the longevity that we talk about. But simply talking of this particular event in Poland, the memorial event here, he has finished second in this one as well with an 84.14 meter throw. He has, of course, again come second, losing to Julian Weber from Germany, who, of course, beat him in the Diamond League just past this last week as well. So the same person that he's lost to. Last week, we were talking about his great achievement of, breaching that 90 meter mark with his throw in the last the Doha event as well. Now with the Poland event, now we've seen 84.14 meter throw today, coming second. As you've seen, it's incredible consistency with which he delivers in every single event that he participates in. Yet another silver medal. As I said, it's yet another event, yet another medal for Neeraj Chopra. It comes as no surprise that every time he takes center stage, he's the one that's making the headlines every time for India. Sure, it's a bittersweet moment that he didn't win the event, just like the one in Doha where we were expecting him to win it after such a mammoth throw with reaching that 90 meter mark, as we were talking about, and the 84 meter mark here as well. But again, a silver medal nonetheless. Neeraj Chopra continues to shine for India.
Well, it is just the beginning of a new season for Neeraj Chopra, Shriram, and it's just been 2 events that Neeraj Chopra has participated in. 2 medals, 1 second position and a silver medal. It just tells you the kind of an athlete that he is. More importantly, there are a number of events that are lined up for Neeraj Chopra in the coming year. How important is it for him to stay fit? That is the most important thing at this moment, because in the last couple of years, he has struggled with injuries. But this year, he looks fit, he looks prepared, and it is important for him to stay that way so that he can win more medals for India.
Oh, 100%. So his injury has been the biggest concern. Nobody's questioning his talent or his ability at all. He is quite honestly right there at the pinnacle of his game in terms of skill, and we've never really seen in this particular sport someone from India do as well as he has. So the injury concerns have been the major part of what the concern might be for India with Neeraj Chopra. If he can stay fit and just continuously weave together these results over the next year or so in the upcoming events, you can clearly see the kind of scores that he's already making, and he can really top the leaderboard by the end of the season. For sure.
Absolutely, and both of us fanboys, Shriram and I, we are both going to be looking forward to this entire season that Neeraj Chopra will have. All right, Shriram, thank you very much for getting us all the details of that story. A federal judge in Boston, Alison Burroughs, blocked the Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students, issuing a temporary restraining order hours after Harvard filed a lawsuit challenging the ban as unconstitutional retaliation. The administration's move, announced by Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, revoked Harvard's student and exchange visitor program certification, citing the university's alleged failure to address anti-Semitism, violence, and ties to the Chinese Communist Party. This ban would have forced nearly 6,800 international students, that is 27% of Harvard's enrollment, to transfer or lose legal status. All right, time now for a very short break. More news and updates continue on the other side.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shiv Aroor, only on NDTV 24/7.
India slams Pakistan at the UNSC. Indian envoy says that Pakistan targeted Indian civilians and that Pakistan intentionally targeted religious sites. India extends airspace closure for Pakistan Airlines till the 23rd of June. The ban imposed on April 30th as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack was set to expire on the 23rd of May. Germany comes out in support of India and condemns the Pahalgam terror attack, saying they support India's right to defend itself. A 27-year-old man is allegedly the one responsible for posting unsolicited videos of Bengaluru women metro commuters on social media. He is arrested by the police. And a federal judge in Boston blocks Trump administration's attempt to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Shab. India on Friday slammed Pakistan at the UN Security Council, saying it has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attacks ranging from the 26/11 Mumbai attacks to the barbaric mass murder of innocent tourists in Pahalgam last month. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Parvathaneni Harish, made these comments while delivering a statement at the UN Security Council open debate. Listen in.
Earlier this month, the Pakistani army deliberately shelled our border villages, killing more than 20 civilians and injuring more than 80. There was intentional targeting of places of worship, including gurudwaras, temples and convents, as well as medical facilities. To preach at this body after such behavior is grossly hypocritical. Let us be clear. Protection of civilians should not serve as an argument for protection of UN-designated terrorists.
India on Friday extended the closure of its airspace for flights operated by Pakistan Airlines by another month till the 23rd of June, according to sources. Now, the ban imposed on April 30th as part of various measures taken by the government against Pakistan in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 people. It was set to expire on the 23rd of May. Pakistan, in the meanwhile, issued a NOTAM extending its airspace closure for Indian-registered aircraft operated or owned or leased by Indian airlines or operators, including military flights.
There has been a NOTAM in place. There are no Indian airlines which are being allowed to fly over Pakistani airspace since the tension has taken place between India and Pakistan post-Pahalgam. So there's no change in that. What has now taken place is that Pakistan has issued a fresh NOTAM. In other words, a fresh set of directions extending extending the NOTAM for another period of approximately 1 month. So for 1 month more, Indian airlines will not be able to fly over Pakistan airspace, which means that they have to take a longer route. Be that as it may, Pakistan is very strictly enforcing this because, as we know, day before yesterday, there was an Indigo flight from Delhi to Srinagar, which got caught in some terrible weather, and they knew they were flying into terrible weather. They wanted to get a diversion around into Pakistan airspace. They did contact Lahore Air Traffic Control, but they were denied permission to operate. Now, in the past, when things were relatively normal between India and Pakistan, there have been instances when Pakistan International Airways aircraft have requested permission to fly into India because of weather conditions. But on this particular occasion, and something which reflects the situation between India and Pakistan, that was denied by the Pakistani air traffic controller. We've also managed to get a lot of details about how serious the incident was as a result of that denial. And there are a few more details which have also now come in because the Indian Air Force as well had advised the Indigo airliner, which was then overhead Pathankot, not to veer left or west as the pilot had requested. All of this ended up with the pilot having to pierce this thick wall of storm front, as it were, with massive changes in his altitude, with the aircraft having registered multiple warnings in cockpit, with faulty airspeed data being available to the pilots. The system itself went into what is called alternate law. which is a degraded way in which the pilot can fly the aircraft. 8,500 feet per second at one stage is what it dropped. Remember, the normal aircraft of the A321 class don't drop more than 1,500 to 3,000 feet per minute under normal circumstances. When the plane landed, it became clear that the nose cone was shattered, but fortunately all the pilots were safe. So, it's fairly difficult and challenging times for civil aviation, and that NOTAM is certainly part of all of this.
In a strong show of solidarity, Germany has extended its full support to India's Operation Sindoor, launched in response to the recent terror attacks in Pahalgam. German Foreign Minister condemned the April 22nd attack and affirmed his country's commitment to supporting global efforts against terrorism.
Yes, security and global security. We all were appalled by the brutal terrorist attack on India on the 22nd of April. We condemned this attack on civilians in the strongest terms. Our deepest sympathy goes out to all victims and their families. After military attacks on both sides, and India, of course, has every right to defend itself against terrorism, the fact that now a truce is in place is something we appreciate very much. What is important now is that this truce remains stable, that dialogue can happen in order to find bilateral solutions.
The National Investigation Agency conducted a nationwide crackdown on illegal immigrants, arresting 44 individuals across 8 states and 2 union territories. The NIA's operation aimed to dismantle human trafficking support networks involved in the infiltration and settlement of illegal migrants across the Indo-Bangladesh border. The agency has continued investigations to uncover the entire ecosystem of these networks. The police on Friday arrested 4 of the 7 prime accused in a gang rape case who were out on bail for parading the streets of Aroor in cars celebrating their release. Now, this incident took place on the 20th of May, but the video clippings, they went viral on social media, drawing criticism from the netizens, prompting the police to act. The Superintendent of Police of Haveri District, Anshu Kumar Srivastav, told the reporters that a case has been registered against the accused persons for unlawful assembly and rash driving.
ಬೇಲ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಅವರು ಸಬ್ಜೇಲ್ ಹಾವೇರಿ ಸಬ್ಜೇಲಿಂದ ಹಾಕಿ ಅಲ್ಲೂರು ಕಡೆ ಬರುವಾಗ ದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಷನ್ ಥರ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಆ ವಿಡಿಯೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದರು. ಇನ್ಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ಗಮನಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಪೊಲೀಸ್ ಸ್ಟೇಷನ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸ್ 84/25 ಅಂಡರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ 189(2), 191(2), 281, 351(2), 351(3) BNSದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಸ್ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. 5 ಆರೋಪಿಗಳು ಕಸ್ಟಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಮುಂದೆ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತು ಹಾನಗಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಂಗ್ ರೇಪ್ ಕೇಸ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಮೀನು ಷರತ್ತು ಉಲ್ಲಂಘನೆ ಆಧಾರದ ಮೇಲೆ ಜಾಮೀನು ರದ್ದು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
The state government's decision to sign up actor Tamanna Bhatia has led to protests and sharp reactions from Kannada groups like Karnataka Rakshana Vedike, which demand that the brand ambassador must be a Kannada star and not a non-Kannadiga. Some activists have even written to the Chief Minister to find a star like Pooja Hegde or Rashmika Mandana from Karnataka instead of Tamanna Bhatia. Industries Minister M.B. Patil, though, defended the choice of Tamanna and pointed out that the effort was to push sales of the soap in national markets and beyond India.
Kannada is our identity and Karnataka is our identity. Here it was a committee which looked into this one. They've checked up all these names, like Tamanna Bhatia, then Rashmika Mandana, then Kiara Advani, then Pooja Hegde, everything. They were all engaged with certain products and all this. Okay. She was the one available for us for 2 years, our conditions, and she has a 2.8 million followers. Yeah. It is a pure business strategy for the growth of this one. There's no question of any disrespecting our Kannada actors and all this. No?
So there's no question of going back on this?
No question of going back. Why should we go back? Our strategy is we don't want to restrict Mysore sandal soap to Karnataka.
Challenges on the security front are increasing in the Indian subcontinent. Uncertainty is increasing in the Indian Ocean region due to the growing tension between India and Pakistan and traditional, non-traditional security threats. After the recent conflict between India and Pakistan, maritime security, it has become a very important issue for India. On all these issues, Chintan Research Foundation, it organized a roundtable conference on Friday on the theme, the Mahasagar Initiative in the current security context.
महासागर इनिशिएटिव मौजूदा परिस्थिति में जो सिक्योरिटी चैलेंजेस इंडिया फेस कर रहा है अभी और हमारे साथ जो ऑल पार्टी डेलीगेशंस दुनिया के अलग अलग देशों में भी गए हुए हैं, महासागर इनिशिएटिव कितना महत्वपूर्ण है इस संदर्भ में?
बहुत शुक्रिया आपका। देखिए क्या होता है, हम लोग आज के ज़माने में वी आर लार्जली इन्फ्लुएंस जो हम टेलीविज़न पे देखते हैं और जो वर्तमान में एक बहुत बड़ी सिक्योरिटी क्राइसिस भारत की रही है, जिसमें भारत ने बहुत ही आई वुड से आउटस्टैंडिंग अपना रिस्पॉन्स दिया है, उसमें ज़्यादातर लोगों को लगा कि ये इंटायर क्राइसिस पूरी की पूरी एयर की है। बट ये सत्य नहीं है। सत्य है कि आजकल कोई भी वॉर, और कोई देश नहीं चाहता, इंडिया तो विशेष करनी चाहती है कि हो, लेकिन जब होती है तो मल्टी डोमेन और मल्टी डायमेंशनल वॉर होती है। कोई हिस्सा होता है जो ज़्यादा प्रकट होता है, कोई हिस्सा होता है जो कम प्रकट होता है। बट मुझे कहने में बिल्कुल हेजिटेशन नहीं है कि इसमें इंडियन नेवी ने एक अंडररेटेड वे में एक क्वाइटली एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रोल प्ले किया है। हम ये जानते ही हैं कि कुछ ऐसे देशों के जहाज़ जो कि हमसे एनिमिकल रखते हैं, वो पहुंच गए थे पाकिस्तान, बट आर नेवी वाज वेल बियॉन्ड दैट टास्क। मतलब जिस प्रकार की घेराबंदी की तैयारी नेवल फोर्सेस ने की थी, जो बहुत कम रिपोर्टेड है, वाज आउटस्टैंडिंग। लेकिन हम